Payload online. Initiating startup sequence. It's going to need a few minutes to get charged up.
You really think that's gonna work?
I built it. Of course it's going to work.
Inspires confidence, doesn't it?
Null sector forces are inbound to your position.
Oh, dang it. I meant to...
Not as young as they used to be.
Watch out for those slices. They aren't as strong, but they tear up the payload.
I can't hear you. Need to keep it safe.
There we go. See? Like I said, it just needed a moment to get warmed up.
So it's ready to move out?
Not quite yet.
I should have known. Team, get ready for another wave of attacks.
Setting out the welcome mat.
On the ledge over there.
Fabian? What was that sound?
Seems like we hit another little snag.
Define little snag.
Forget about it. Defend the payload. It just needs a little more time. It's going to work. Trust me.
Watch them keep them off the payload.
Testing, and hello, what's up, everybody? It is the DarkCon Entertainment, and I am here so far with JJ Skinner, the Libertarian Native, and the Common Sense guy, also known as Jason. And no doxing here; they've already revealed their names. So, but how are you guys doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing absolutely amazing. Looking forward to staying awake as being a Brit Bong to talk about your politics, because apparently you're the most important country in the world.
I mean, it's not far from the truth, but no. Yes, so this time I have OBS set up, as you guys can obviously see. Hopefully this time it will not decide to cut off on me in the middle of it and just, you know, completely shut down the stream. And if it does end up being super duper laggy and want to shut down on us, then we are going to immediately revert from OBS setup to streaming through StreamYard, just purely through StreamYard instead. But this time I have OBS linked through Firefox instead of Google Chrome, because a little pro tip from Aircraft Sparky: Google Chrome uses a lot of memory, or a lot of RAM. He said memory, but I do not know if he meant to say RAM. But either way, he said that Google Chrome uses up a lot of system, and so that's the reason as to why that I have it through Firefox instead, to sort of fix that problem. And hello everybody in the chat so far: Zachary Colley, JC Armitage, Cat Chat, Akil the Stray Cat. So, what have your thoughts been on the general election so far, Common Sense Guy? I don't think I've ever heard even vaguely your opinion about them.
To be fair, I actually think it's a lot cleaner than what the 2016 election was. I think that there's not so much sniping. I know people would say that there are still stories going around, and I'm with you, I understand that. But in a general converse between the two candidates, as in between Hillary and Trump from 2016, it was a lot more, should we say, in your face and seemed personal. where yeah, Trump's a bit abrasive, and yeah, Biden's slips up a couple of bits and pieces in debates and whatnot. But overall, for politics anyway, it seems to be as clean as possible.
Don't know if I would say as clean as possible. I mean, not to say as to whether or not that it is an illegitimate issue at all, but there is a whole Hunter Biden thing that is being dragged out of the woodworks as far as going against Biden goes and going against Trump. They have the whole white supremacy thing that has been talked about repeatedly, and I think it was from Aircraft Sparky actually, who said that he caught wind that that's one of the questions that they're going to bring up in this debate. And if that is really true,
oh my gosh,
well then they are just absolutely wasting time. This issue was already addressed in the first debate, and
he addressed it multiple times throughout his presidency.
Yeah, exactly, and he's even like addressed it during the during his town hall that he had, as was featured by actual Justice Warrior.
Yeah, 4 times he literally addressed it in the town hall, where it's like, no, I can condemn it, I condemn it, I condemn it. He always added onto it. He also condemns Antifa and so on and so forth, which people don't like for whatever reason, and that's on them. But yeah,
because of the name.
You mean the idea, my friend? You mean the idea?
That too, but the idea, Antifa.
Oh no! You don't get the reference, JJ. You don't get the reference.
Oh.
C Connor 7 in the chat. So who is everyone voting for? I'll probably like reveal who I'm voting for in a later video. I've kind of said it before in the past, or at least implied it, or well, actually, sometimes I've outright said it. But nonetheless, I'm going to reiterate it in a future video. JJ, who do you think that you're going to be voting?
Well, considering I've had a lot of talks with other fellow libertarians and other servers, they actually got me back on the Joe Jorgensen train.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, I wouldn't really blame you. I mean, I cannot argue at all for freaking for Trump. He's barely, if at all, defensible. But Joe Jorgensen, at the same time, I don't find her investable enough for me to go ahead and for me to outright be committed to definitely want to vote for her. By the way, my 2 cents, I see that you're in the live chat. You can join this call if you want to. The freaking link is in the Strikeforce discussion chat group on Twitter and also on Discord. Don't know if I have you on the chat group on Discord, but nonetheless, Yako Warner for president, says my 2 cents. And everybody's asking who is Warner, and I'm from Animaniacs, says C Connor 7 in the chat. Thanks for reminding us. That's kind of what I almost thought there, C Connor. Excuse me. And Common Sense Guy, I know that you are a Brit Bonger, but all the same, if I was to ask you, just in theory, who is it that you support to win for president?
I mean, if I wanted to be principled, I would have to say a independent or maybe a libertarian. But if I was actually going to be involved in your political system, you'd have to look at the 2-party system, realizing that having a, should we say, a protest vote, if you wanted to put it in that aspect, isn't actually going to benefit anybody. And the more you protest vote, you probably have more chance of, in my opinion, a higher of 2 evils going in, which would be Biden. So I'd have to cast my vote for Trump simply because I wouldn't want Biden in control, because he wouldn't be in control.
Yeah, very bad option to give him any power. And even Kamala.
Everyone knows that I'm definitely, because as the theories go, Joe Biden might end up croaking in under a year into his presidency if he was to win, and then Kamala would take the reins.
You mean commit suicide, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. He'll Jeffrey Epstein himself. Epstein didn't kill himself.
No, he did not.
It's time for Animaniacs, says my 2 cents. Zachary Collier says, I doubt I will go to the ballot. It's a choice between a rock and a hard place, and it only legitimizes the shit show we see. Okay, fair enough. I wonder what kind of shit show we're gonna be watching with this debate, says JC Armitage. I don't know. It might be a little bit more structured than the last one, because I remember vaguely, at least, that that after the first presidential debate, oh god, they're cringe. They're doing the elbows thing.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Isn't it kind of self-defeating, because at least 2 of them were not wearing masks, and the other 3 were wearing masks, yet they were all doing the elbow thing. So you might as well have just been going full bore and just shaking hands, or at least fist bumping. I mean, even though we're talking about a whole bunch of older gooners, but even a fist bump would be less cringy than a elbow thing.
Sure, I mean they've got to play to the cameras, though, haven't they? That's the thing. They've got to play to the cameras. Whether they're wearing masks, which Donald Trump was heavily criticised in the town hall for not wearing his, but that's not going to get moved on to at all.
Yeah, believe it or not, people are actually getting so upset about the mask thing that they're saying that neck gaiters are bad, and if you wear it, you're a bad person and all that.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah, they're that finicky about the masks.
Is it the pro-maskers that are saying if you're wearing a neck gaiter, you're a horrible person?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, I didn't know if it was like the anti-maskers who were saying that stuff, and I was like,
No, they're not that dumb.
Like the anti-maskers. I mean, I'm pretty much an anti-masker, and that's the thing that I go wearing most of the time. My thin ass neck gaiter thing, as you all have seen me wear it on occasion with the blackout American flag and whatnot. And that's also,
and by dumb ones, I mean the ones that say "it's my right" and all that. You know, the annoying ones.
Well, they're not wrong. I mean, they're being a little bit
they're right,
overly...
but I'm talking about the obnoxious ones.
Yeah, obnoxious, because even though I'm an anti-masker, I'm also pro-private property rights, and if a person is going to ask me to go ahead and put on the mask, I'll just go ahead and do it. If a a private property owner asks it, I'll oblige. I mean, if an anti-masker is to be that obnoxious, then yeah, it's pretty cringy. But by the way, that's the new profile picture up and coming, just to give people a sneak peek.
So you're trying to pretend you're cool?
I've been doing that from the very beginning. You're just now catching on to that?
No, I always thought that you were laughing. No, I always thought that you were laughing to try and pretend that you're that kid that tries to be cool. I thought you were actually being intelligent about it. I never realized that you were that kid that was trying to be cool at the time.
Oh, geez, Jason, bringing on the sick burns here.
Sorry, Geese, you know I love you.
No, I know you. I know you do. No homo, by the way.
Yeah, no homo. Just tongues.
Yuck.
I can tell I'm going to be loved tonight.
It's been a while, Common Sense guys, so I'm glad that legitimately am glad that you could join us.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've absolutely done anything on my channel whatsoever. I think it's at least been 4 weeks. I've kind of disappeared. It's like politics are like second string to life at the minute for me. It's almost like being the age I am, but I've realized that there's more important things than the internet.
Oof.
Mega oof.
I mean, it's generally sex, but you know, shh.
Michaela Stray Cat, just curious, I'm told that the moderator will have a mute button. Has that ever been done before? I don't think so, Mikhail.
It hasn't. It's never been done.
JC Armitage.
I don't think it can be. Because if you were to mute one of them, especially being the fact that you'd be literally cutting off the President of the United States from speaking, kind of defeats the whole First Amendment, like in theory and in practice. I don't think it can be done.
It's a bit of a bad image too, because it just makes the media look worse. And I mean, the media already looks bad, but they're just going to make themselves look even worse. If people are going to start asking questions like, "Oh, what are they trying to hide by them trying to mute Donald Trump at this particular point right here?" It should be
Biden.
Yeah, Hunter Biden, right? I wonder if anyone has worn Ghost's mask from Modern Warfare 2 during this whole mask mandate malarkey, says JC.
They have. It's been all over TikTok.
I'm so glad
And you
I
know,
went...
if it's been on TikTok, it's been really important.
Kill the Stray Cat says that. Right. Now knocking on JJ and his favorite website ever since.
Yay. It's a love-hate relationship. I'm hate fucking.
But you can't. But you can't fuck it, JJ. It's not physical. Get that reference?
Hasn't stopped me before.
You get that reference though?
Yes, of course I do.
People who have watched the channel for a long ass time will know a bit of that reference. And some other YouTube channels that have been before associated with the now relinquished or whatever word that you want to call it, poor bastards. The now dissolved, that's the word I'm looking for. The now dissolved poor bastards. I'm so glad I went and got beer for this, says Mikilla Stray Cat. And I got myself energy drink right here. And by the way, in case anybody goes wondering, caffeine, it affects me more in the short term, if anything. So this ain't gonna keep me up that long in the night, if at all, right after this debate is done. I'm gonna go put on some chicken. Be right back, says Cat Chat. Alright, hurry back. You got about 5 minutes and 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm. So, do we reckon that Trump's going to change his tax on this? Because don't get me wrong, I liked what he did in the actual last debate. I prefer him to be more like he was in a town hall. If he needs to be abrasive, then go for it, but don't start off as that tact. Maybe stem it back a bit, so you know the compromising president rather than the bully president that everybody already believes you are.
Well, apparently that's what people like out of him, though.
Yeah, but because people already like that about him, they already know that about him. So it's not about winning the people that already like him. Not in this debate. It should be about winning those moderates, the people that are still deciding. So that way you have to portray yourself as something that the media is not portraying you as. You know, your actual self.
Yep.
Yeah, but then some of the diehard Trumpists are going to think that Trump is being weak. I don't know. It's a very thin line of getting just that right amount between, abrasive and cordial.
But would they vote for Biden instead of Trump if Trump was being cordial?
I don't know.
That's the thing where I'm going. You've already got a base, so to speak. So these types of debates are not necessarily playing to your base. Now, you should pander to them, but you don't need to always play to them.
Mm-hmm. A monster drink. You got matching claws from that while Red Bull gave you wings, says Zachary Colley. Yes, that's part of my Halloween costume for this year. I'm gonna be going as a clawed demon with wings. No. In all seriousness,
so you mean just a normal demon? So just a normal demon then?
Yeah, I guess so. At first I thought I heard another tick, Smiley P might have joined on or whatnot. I don't know. And I just checked Twitter, by the way. He has not seen the message of where that I sent out the StreamYard link, so maybe he won't join us. Who knows? But nonetheless, it seems that we might soon be starting. So I'm gonna turn back on the audio. Also, by the way, just a little FYI for the both of you. If you have something you want to say in response to what either of these two are saying, or a reaction to give, just ask me to pause it, and I'll do so.
Or you can
I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Game Master.
Game.
Game. I said
master?
game on purpose. Game Master.
Okay. Yeah, we're have you ever watched Mahler's EFAP podcast, by the way? Common Sense Guy?
Maybe.
He's like a movie reviewer there in Brit Bong land, so...
Oh, no. I never listen to anything that any other Brit has to say because they're just stupid as fuck.
Ain't that the truth?
I agree.
Not even Sargon or academic agent.
No. I've had talked to an academic agent about the idea of solar panels and putting fucking solar panels in the middle of Sahara Desert.
Oh
And-
my gosh.
Yeah, that was his idea, and he thought it would actually work.
Putting solar panels in the middle of Sahara Desert.
Yes.
And people say I'm retarded.
Yeah.
I'm going to the.
I mean, don't get me wrong. He's an intelligent guy, and I'm sure he's was an academic before he got kicked out, so to speak. But not just because you're an academic doesn't mean you're smart.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. School smart, not street smart.
Correct. You win a cookie.
Isn't it a biscuit? Shouldn't you be saying biscuit in Brit Bong land there, Jason?
No, we actually do have cookies. We have biscuits, but we actually have cookies as well.
Okay, but I thought you referred to say like a chocolate chip little flat pastry as a biscuit, for example.
Nope, that's a cookie.
That is called a cookie.
Yep.
Well, then what do you call the fluffier, slightly taller, round buttermilk, buttery, starches of goodness?
Depends if you're talking about shortbread biscuits or if you're talking about biscuits. But yeah, they would be a biscuit.
Okay. So the language of Brit Bong land must be evolving. You're finally catching on to the times. No. And so
I think it's more of a case of we just can't be asked to fight your retardation anymore.
Howdy, y'all.
you fucker.
Howdy, Rationale. How you doing,
Good
buddy?
evening from Belmont
How are you?
University in Nashville, Tennessee.
Here we go.
I'm Kristen
Not too bad.
Welker of NBC News, and I welcome you to the final 2020
What'd I
presidential
miss?
debate between
Not
President
much.
Nothing,
Donald
you
J.
literally
Trump
just opened
and
up,
former
Rash.
Vice President Joe Biden. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. It is conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Commission's health security advisor. The audience here in the hall has promised to
She
remain
looks so
silent.
happy when
No
she's saying
cheers,
that. It's been
boos, or
designed
other
by-
interruptions, except right now, as we welcome to the stage former Vice President Joe Biden.
not gonna lie,
and
she's kinda
President
pretty.
Donald J. Trump.
Yeah. I can't really deny that.
That's a slow start.
No, they didn't even shake hands or do the elbow thing. They don't
And
like
I do
each
want
other.
to say a very good evening to both of you. This debate will cover 6 major topics. At the beginning of each section, each candidate will have 2 minutes uninterrupted to answer my first question. The debate commission will then
Your
turn on
first question.
their microphone only when it is their turn to answer.
Condemn
And the
white
commission will turn
nationalism.
it off exactly when the 2 minutes have expired. After that,
Oh,
both
boy.
microphones will remain on, but on behalf of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every word of what you both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question is for you. The country is heading into a dangerous new phase. More than 40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine.
Would you pause it for a second?
Yeah. Apparently, that's the second time that I've heard him say that. Like, I think I've heard somebody mention how he used literal warp speed. Well, no. It was Mike Pence during the vice presidential debate used the term warp speed. So apparently, they're unironically using that term. But what were you about to say, CS guy?
I was more thinking of the fact of how important the fact of him actually stating that the vaccine is ready. Now, I know it's Trump, so that may not necessarily be exactly meaningful at the minute. So I do get that. But if that's even remotely close to being factually correct, even remotely close, that's absolutely amazing. Because over in the UK, ours is not going to be anywhere near ready until probably January, February sort of time, and that may not even be ready. The Europeans are somewhere close to that. I don't even want to guess where the Russians are, apparently. And as for the Chinese as well, I'm not 100% sure about, other testing, whether or not it's going to be factually correct or not. But if he's saying that that's going to be anywhere remotely close to true, and he can produce that, with all the legislation he's put forward, as you quite rightly said, with warp speed and everything else like that, then nobody can really go against Trump by saying you did nothing for the pandemic.
JC Armitage says, military delivering vaccines, does this not concern anyone? The implication that he had put out in the first debate was definitely concerning to me, JC, but I haven't heard anything yet said by Trump as far as that goes. But let's see what he has to say. Oh, shit. Oof. I accidentally rewound it.
They will soon be gone. We have a experience that I was in the hospital. I had it, and I got better. And I will tell you that I had something that they gave me, a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure, but I was in
It's
for
definitely not a
short period of
cure.
time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune. Whether it's 4 months or a lifetime, nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better. We have a problem that's
Wouldn't be surprised if he's exaggerating that, but whatever.
a worldwide
Yeah,
problem.
immunity doesn't mean that you're immune. When they say that he's got immunity, that doesn't mean
He's
he's immune
resistant.
to it completely. Yes, exactly correct.
Worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators. We're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world. It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
Okay, former Vice President Biden, to you, how would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
220,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, hear this. Anyone who's responsible.
220,000, that sounds, from what I recall, 20,000 too high. I'm going to look up the CDC numbers very quickly if I can.
For not taking.
Regardless as to whether he miscalculated the exact numbers, it's low to the original projections because they did not know how deadly this disease was going to be. And there's nothing Trump could have done really to prevent it anymore. The only thing is that every level of the government really failed at this, and it was mostly from the CDC and FDA that failed at this, not so much the Trump administration itself.
Right. All deaths involving COVID-19 at 208,000. So, yeah, we have actually 208,633. So almost 209,000. But yeah, nonetheless, it's a fair point, Rash.
In fact, not saying I'm.
What?
I was going to say as well that with the added point of everybody also pointing out that it was supposed to be over 2 million. My maths is not particularly great, so maybe you guys can help me out here. What's 200,000 in a percentage out of 360 million?
It'd be less than 1%. Considerably less than 1%. But be like 0.2%, 0.3%, something like that. I'm just guesstimating.
Cool. Absolutely what my point was going to be. So, in a pandemic that was projected to be close to the same as SARS and other relative diseases, somehow only knocked out less than 1% of the people. Now, it's really horrible that 1% of the population, or less than 1% of the population, or in this case, 200 and something thousand people have passed away. But when you put it into context of how the population actually stems and stands, I mean this in a nice way, and I know you don't like swearing on your channel, but that's fuck all.
Yes.
Well, wait. When the fuck did I say that I don't like swearing on my channel?
Well,
Never mind.
another point is to bring up is that this is mostly affecting the elderly and at-risk people, especially the much older people. Although no life lost is a good thing or anything, but in the sense of economics speaking, the elderly are not going to be as important to the economy-wise as a younger person is going to be, because they still have to build their income. They're still working within the economy. When you're retired, you have less of an effect, less of an importance to the economy's health, is what I'm trying to say. So that's the other thing. And, of course, the elderly are already much more susceptible because their immune system is weaker. So you should expect the more people to die from a disease like this, because that particular group is more at risk in general because they're older.
Right. We got it. I do want to make these points of where that we're responding relatively short. And by the way, I just did the math there. I do not know if anybody saw that, but apparently it's like 0.06% or 0.07% is what the percentage is for comparing 220,000 to 320 million.
I take no responsibility initially. Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths.
Sorry, hang on just 1 second before we go any further.
Sorry.
How many people died in Ebola and SARS?
Right.
I'm not exactly sure. Go on.
The reason why I point it out is that it doesn't really matter what the comparative numbers are. If it is something relatively comparable, then under Vice President Biden's fucking own statements, he shouldn't ever go near office again then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's today. And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to...
That's because we have more innovated our testing, so we're able to test people at a higher rate, and we're just finding more cases. I mean, me personally, I saw this posted at one point on Facebook or somewhere else that the actual cases themselves of how many people get this disease should not really matter that much in the practicality of what we do in society. It should be more the deaths that we concern ourselves with. And as shown here by the CDC, the amount of weekly deaths that happen, it was at the highest point in from April through the early parts of May, and now as of October 10th, 2020, it has been only a little over 2,500. The midpoint, that I just mentioned there, April 18, 2020 was over 17,000, so the deaths are going down whilst the cases are still going up. So that goes to show that people are building up a little bit of a resilience, even if they are catching this disease. So is it really that big a deal at this point, Joe? I mean, no offense. I mean, I don't want to be insensitive to the people who actually do die from this disease. It's horrible that they die in general, but nonetheless, the numbers just don't add up to a big enough panic to where that we have to shut down the entire economy.
Well, yeah, and if this was attacking, for example, the younger people who are in their 20s and 30s, that would be a bit of a reason to shut down in some sense if it was attacking a younger group, like because they are the future of the economy, as to keep the economy going and everything.
Well, like the Spanish flu and bubonic plague, for example, but let's move on.
Yeah.
What's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors...
Press X to doubt in the chat for what he just said there, everybody.
Press very X.
100
Well, yeah, I'm
lives.
pressing X because if it
And we're
took
in a
us to reach
circumstance
the
where
200,000 within how many months has it been?
Like 7-ish months or
No,
7 to 8
no,
months.
no. Started around about January, remember?
Well, we okay. I don't know about England, but here in the U.S., we did not really see
It
cases
was around
until
March or
about
April when it
March.
started
Yeah,
to get big here.
March was when that we actually started seeing cases being reported, and the mid-March was when that the lockdown got into full effect, and April was when that really was, fully in fuller effect. But for us, it was March. I don't know. It might have been January there in the UK, but I digress.
But yeah, either way, it took us a
still
few
has
months to reach
no-
200,000. I think it would take a little longer than the end of the year to reach another 200,000.
Exactly, and not to mention the death rate is going down. So at best, I would guess another 50,000, maybe at highest.
I would give it the very highest another 100,000 at tops.
At best, but even then, anyway.
Plan, no comprehensive plan. What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing, investing in rapid.
And by the way, how are you going to enforce such a mandate? What were you about to say, JJ?
I was about to say, you're not allowed to take off your mask. First of all, how would you enforce that? And second of all, would that involve even in your own home? Because I'm pretty sure that would be very much against our,
Against our Constitution?
rights. Yeah, against our rights.
Well, it's against our rights even outside of our home, but it's definitely inside of our home. I mean, to what extent are you talking about here, Joe? He's just being vague and ambiguous to make it himself sound all fluffy to all the pro-lockdown people, And let's be honest. Most of the people that are in the moderate center, like as CS Guy had mentioned a little bit earlier, are sympathetic towards the lockdown, if not full-on pro-lockdown themselves. It's really only the people who are going to vote for Trump nonetheless, or the people who are firmly in the right already, who are against the lockdown and already, have their stance on that. Anyway.
Before you move on,
go on.
Big Joe was saying about rapid testing and about there's no actual plan or whatever that's being implemented, right? He's literally just saying the exact same plan as what Donald Trump has already implemented. He's already said, he's already implemented about being able to get fast testing, being able to give it to people that can't afford it, and so on and so forth.
All right. Sorry, I'm just responding to a text right here, so excuse me on that. Right, but we're going to play this.
Sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
President Trump, I'd like to follow up with you in your comments. You talked about taking a therapeutic. I assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
Can you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well. And we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you, and because this is new information, you have said a vaccine is coming soon, within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
Dear God,
No,
no, please, no.
I don't know that they're counting on
I
the
do not
military.
want to be social distancing in 2022. I don't even want to do it in 2021.
Yeah, no, I don't want to even be, by Christmas time, be still mandated to wear a mask.
I want all this bullcrap to be over.
Our generals lined up, one in particular, that's the head of logistics. And this
I don't want it to even be this way during Halloween, for crying out loud.
This is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine, and we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter, and he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people.
And like you do, numbnuts.
Before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no
I don't think we're
plan.
going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned
I will say
China,
Trump is doing far better than he did the last debate.
Who is doing better than last debate?
Trump is doing a whole lot better than the last debate. So
right.
far.
As far as
most
cordiality
definitely.
goes, I think he's doing about equal as far as substance goes, but cordiality, yeah, he's being a little bit more cordial.
from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe. But China.
Cat Chat says in the chat, I was promised that the all-you-can-eat places would be open again by now. Yeah, I pity you there in Aussie land, Cat Chat, because just by watching Bering's video, they seem to be a whole lot more fascistic there in Australia over this pandemic than we are here in the States.
Technically, it should have been over in April with the whole lockdown bullcrap.
Yeah.
Because we were only told, flatten the curve, flatten the curve. Yeah, it turned out that we weren't going to just do flatten the curve.
Yeah.
Was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, "Oh, I should have, moved quicker." But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me, and frankly, he ran the H1N1.
Look at that! Yeah, shit himself.
The shots fired.
he looks like he feels hurt.
He's like, why you do this to me, Bo?
And it was a total disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now. But it was a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person who ran that for him.
You know, I think just to give a little bit of advice to the Biden campaign, what would make yourselves look a lot better is if Biden was to put out a number of what he thinks, of what he projects the numbers would look like if they gone with his route of, the lockdowns and whatnot. Like, if you think that 200,000 is too high, under your exact plan, Biden, how much lower would the deaths from the coronavirus be as opposed to 200,000? Like, bring that talking point up if you want to be talking shit about that, Joe.
But he can't. He literally cannot say or even come up with a plan that would necessarily beat Trump's plan.
Right.
Because he didn't actually start doing anything until about April, where Trump already had a month and a bit ahead of him. So whatever Biden would come up as a plan would be a month and a half late.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So he's just trying to pull at people's heartstrings with the 200,000 figure is all he's doing.
Yeah, not the dark winter in a dark house in the dark stairs. There's Biden under a dark cupboard.
Yep.
Dark brain.
He's going to take us to a dark age.
Who, as you know, was his chief of staff, said it was catastrophic. It was horrible. We didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that.
Xenophobic.
Oh, that doesn't matter. You literally evaded his point right there. He was all like, oh, but look at my opponent here and the way of one that he was proposing that we should have shut things down. No, instead Joe is all like, oh, but look at other countries of when that they shut things down. We're comparing Trump to you, numbnuts, not him to freaking other country leaders.
See, what Biden's literally just done here is he's gone, look, you cut somebody's finger, and Trump's saying, well, you literally cut somebody's head off. Like, you're saying that I did bad, but you would have done a hell of a lot worse and did worse.
He made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened was...
This is very, very dangerous from Biden's camp. If he's now going to say that China is not telling the truth, and Trump is saying, well, no, we should trust China because China's being transparent, international relations on where he's going to say Trump's trade war later on is to be at the benefit of the United States, which obviously it is, then he hasn't got a leg to fucking stand on, because even in his own words, China are asshole.
Yeah.
They're evil.
Donald Trump don't trust China. China is asshole.
I love that video.
I love that, dude.
Started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this.
I would literally love to see that same exact guy become like a talk show host in Hong Kong or something.
No, not in Hong Kong. He died.
Oh, right. Especially since China basically took full jurisdiction over Hong Kong recently, as far as compared to only partial jurisdiction that they had beforehand.
Move to Taiwan.
Yep.
He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about don't worry, it's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump, your reaction?
I say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room in the White House and go away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten, every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including
Now the quips are coming out, folks.
Including Gold Star families and military.
By the way, if you're listening to that, yes, I have it on 25% higher than normal speed.
Families. Every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said, this is dangerous, and you catch it. And I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals, and now I recovered. 99.9 of young people recover. 99% of people recover. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation. We have to open our school, and we can't close up our nation, or you're not going to have a nation.
And of course, the CDC.
Speak, preach. I can't believe that I'm saying this right now,
Facts,
but preach, Trump. What?
Facts, Trump, facts.
Yeah, I mean the coronavirus is here to stay in the near future. Like we can pretty much like be like a freaking turtle and just go completely in our shell, or we can be like a raging lion and try to get shit done. As far as the economy and
you can't be a lion. You can't be a lion. Us British are lions. You're an eagle. Go squawk.
Okay. Fair enough then, Brett Bonger.
CDC has said young people can get sick with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy, though. You have
respond to that?
30 seconds, please, and then I have a question.
No, number one.
By the way, before we go any further, I just want to say very quickly, the stream connection seems to be doing very, very well. So for future reference, I am definitely going to have to do Firefox instead of Chrome as far as where I stream my OBS through for the YouTube Studio browser.
He says that we're learning to live with it. People are learning to die with it. You folks home will have an empty chair at the kitchen table this morning. That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over.
No, that's not scare tactics and propaganda.
Yep.
Yeah.
Out of habit, where their wife or husband is gone. Learning to live with it. Come on, we're dying with it because he's never.
Can you pause for just 1 second again?
Yep.
Like
one
my
Mississippi
little
plane.
quip there.
No, I'm joking.
Damn it.
Go on.
But my little quip there was maybe ill-informed, but literally as he's saying beforehand and what we pointed out before, it's less than what was it, 0.07 or 0.06% of the population that has unfortunately passed away in America. So when he says that you are going to learn to die with it, he's just pulling shit out of his ass and then throwing it at a camera to make it look like it's sticking.
He's a fucking monkey.
I mean, I was trying to imply it, but I suppose I should just be American and come out and say it, right?
I mean, we're pretty blunt.
But yeah, just remember that when he's actually coming out and saying you're learning to die with it, that's 0.06, not 0.6, but 0.06, 0.07% of the population. So if that's what learning to die with it is, then you're learning to die with cancer. You're learning to die with drinking. You're learning to die with driving. So well done, Joe Biden. Your language is amazing.
Mm-hmm. By the way, JC Armitage in the chat, thanks for the feedback. She says, yeah, haven't gotten the ridiculous buffering issues like last time. Thank you very much.
When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now? What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me, I take.
What the fuck? Did Trump actually come out and full out say that, or is he saying we're trying to do the best that we can? I'm pretty sure that it's the latter and not the former. You just if
you played it just a little bit longer, Trump was just literally trying to interject to point out that he never said
all right.
that.
Well, then let's shut up.
I take full responsibility. It's not my fault that he came here. It's China's fault. And you know what? It's not Joe's fault that he came here either. It's China's fault. They kept it from going into the rest of China for the most part, but they didn't keep it from coming out.
The look on his face screamed, "Why are you bringing up China again? China is our friend."
But, you know, they lie.
China is our friend! China friend!
Out to the
China
world,
is our friend that lies to us.
The accent was so fucking racist, Ration.
And fucks us with no lube.
Europe and ourselves.
Vice President Biden.
The fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry.
You ran away and said it was nothing to go down and eat in fucking Chinatown because there's nothing wrong with it. Mm. Oh, sorry, that was Pelosi. Sorry. You said fuck all.
Away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry. The warm weather. Don't worry. Maybe inject bleach. He said he was kidding when he said that, but a lot of people thought it was serious. A whole range of things the president has said. Even today, he thinks we are in control. We're about to lose 200,000 more people.
President Trump.
Look, perhaps just to finish this, I was kidding on that, but just to finish this, when I closed, he said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for months. Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco. But when I closed...
Oh, just what CS Guy said.
Whoa, wow.
I'm a mind reader. Wait, no, I just know what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
This is a terrible thing. You're xenophobic. I think he called me racist even. And because I was closing it to China. Now he says I should have closed it earlier. It just, Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
You certainly did. You certainly
did. I talked about his xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to handling
He thought
this.
I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well,
that's obvious.
Do you want to respond to that quickly, Vice President
No.
Biden? Okay. Let's talk about your different strategies toward dealing with this. Mr. Vice
No,
President, you
I
suggested
didn't think
supporting
that.
shutdowns
Wait,
if
what was the whole
scientists
point of this
recommended it.
debate?
What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus.
Oh, that is a good question
It's his
she made.
That is a really good question.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm quickly trying to Google up on the claim of, you know, about what Biden exactly said about Trump shutting things down.
Caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Why businesses have gone under, why schools are closed, why so many people have lost their living, and why they're concerned. Those other concerns are real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap at his golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
But you haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Well, no, I'm not shutting down the name, but there are, look, you need standards. The standard is if you have a reproduction rate in a community that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up. more social distancing. Do not open bars and do not open gymnasiums. Do not open until you get this under control, under more control. But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, schools. Schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with smaller classes, more teachers, more pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about schools. President
Well,
Trump,
I think we have to respond, if I might.
please, and then I have a follow-up.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Look, all he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. His Democrat governors, Cuomo in New York, you look at what's going on in California, you look at Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Democrats all, they're shut down so tight, and they're dying. They're dying. And he supports all these people. All he talks about is shutdowns. No, we're not going to shut down, and we have to open our schools. And it's like, as an example, I have a young son. He also tested positive. By the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young people. I guess it's their immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've demanded schools open in person and insist they can do it safely. But just yesterday, Boston became the latest city to move its public school system entirely online after a coronavirus spike. What is your message to parents who worry that sending their children to school will endanger not only their kids, but also their teachers and families?
I want to open the schools. The transmittal rate to the teachers is very small, but I want to open the schools. We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country with a...
So this is from PJ Media, and I know that PJ Media is kind of right-leaning. The title of the article goes, Biden blames Trump for 60,000 deaths for not shutting down country earlier, but he held rallies through March 10. This was by Matt Margolis back in June 1st, 2020. So it's a little bit of an old one, but it's quite relevant. I'll have to give this a read later on and, feature it on the next episode of Strike Force News. But let's get on with this. We are freaking 17 minutes behind.
Massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. You know, I've said it often. The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. And that's what's happening. And he wants to close down.
By the way, I just want to give a reminder to everybody in the chat. Please like the stream if you are liking what's being presented and whatnot, liking the format and the quality and whatnot. Just help boost us in the algorithm, please and thank you.
Yeah, and whatnot.
Just a little reminder.
Close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden, your
Simply
response.
not true. We ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We ought to be able to safely open. They need resources to open. You need to be able to...
Why aren't you liking it? Because I'm in it?
Have social distancing within the business. You need to have it.
We can hear you, Rational.
Yeah, you're not muted, Rash.
Sorry.
If you're talking one-on-one with your boyfriend, please make sure you're muted.
If you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can take testing rapidly and know whether a person is in fact infected. You need to be able to trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources that are needed to do this. And that is not inconsistent with saying that we're going to make sure that we open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. Come on.
President Trump, let me follow up with you quickly.
By the way, I will say this. If you go and look at what's happened to New York, it's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. And when you talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money. Putting up plexiglass is unbelievably expensive, and it's not the answer. I mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle wrapped around with plastic. These are businesses that are dying, Joe. You can't do that to people. You just can't. Take a look at New York and what's happened to my wonderful city for so many years. I loved it. It was vibrant. It's dying. Everyone's leaving New York.
Take a look at what New York has done in terms of turning the curve down in terms of the number of people dying. And I don't look at this in terms of the way he does. Blue states and red states.
Yeah, look at the amount of people that died in fucking care homes because they were beaten up by people that were forced to go in there that weren't old.
Yeah, because of Cuomo. Exactly, JJ.
The United States. And look at the states that are having such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states. They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states in the upper Midwest. That's where the spike is occurring significantly. But they're all Americans. They're all Americans. And what we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the help that the businesses need that has money's already been passed to do that. It's been out there since the beginning of the summer, and nothing's happened.
President, New York has lost more than 40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what
when
about...
you say spike, take a look at what's happening in Pennsylvania. where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed to do anything. It's been like a prison. Now it was just ruled unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina. They're having spikes.
I do have to say that the Michigan governor is pretty tyrannical with the way she's been handling.
She's a power-hungry bitch.
Indeed.
And they've been closed, and they're getting killed.
And by the way, according to PolitiFact, no stores did not, no, Michigan did not ban the sale of seeds in grocery stores. All they did is just ban the sections, the gardening sections of where that they do sell seeds. So, pedantry aside, no, they did not ban the selling of seeds. Yeah, PolitiFact is stupid in that sort of way.
Oh yeah, they're definitely are.
Financially.
They'll say something is completely false or mostly false when there was only maybe a slight miscalculation on something, or a slight exaggeration.
I'm gonna have to definitely make a new video next year talking about PolitiFact and why I don't trust them.
Joe, you can't let that happen.
As you should.
We have to open up. And we understand the disease. We have to protect our seniors. We have to protect our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems and diabetes problems. And we will protect them. We have the best testing in the world by far. That's why we have so many cases.
Let me follow up with you before we move on to our next section. President Trump.
He mentioned what I basically said there, but it wasn't so as well articulated. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just giving myself a big head. But basically saying that the only reason why that the cases are so big is because we're doing more testing and more modernization of the testing. But whatever.
This week you called Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's best-known infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster. You described him and other medical experts.
Nobody trusts Fauci. Why are you citing him? Or barely anybody.
Except for liberals.
The guy praised Andrew Cuomo for doing a successful job. He's not trustworthy if he praises him for doing a good job, as he says.
Unfortunately, the reason why they're touting him is because of this appeal to authority. Because he's supposed to be, and in most cases, is the most credentialed person that comes to when they're talking about viruses. They're going to go to him for his opinion.
Oh yeah, I know.
But that's literally the reason. And look, we can all say that we don't trust Fauci, and we can all give that opinion. But when we say, "Oh, why did they go there?" But let's be a little bit honest about it. There is a reason, unfortunately.
I know. Yeah, I know. I know why they do it.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
it's because he's a government official, and we're talking about other, elected government officials.
Pretty much. Idiots. If you're not listening to them, who are you listening to as you fight this?
I'm listening to all of them, including Anthony. I get along very well with Anthony. But he did say, don't wear masks. He did say, as you know, this is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said, this is not going to be a problem. We are not going to have a problem at all. When Joe says that, I said, Anthony Fauci said, and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew what this thing was. Nobody knew where it was coming from, what it was. We've learned a lot. But Anthony said, don't wear masks. Now he wants to wear masks. Anthony also said, if you look back, exact words, here's his exact words. This is no problem. This is going to go away soon. So he's allowed to make mistakes. He happens to be a good person.
Vice President Biden, your response quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
My response is that think about what the president knew in January and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was
pause it for a second?
All right.
What Donald Trump just did there is actually a really amazing answer, just from even a neutral's point of view. He's pointing out the fact that he did make mistakes, but he made mistakes because of the information that was relayed to him by experts and by external experts from outside, for example, the WHO.
Mm-hmm.
And he pointed that out, and he's like, well, he's allowed to make mistakes, but I'm not. The only reason that the difference is I'm Donald Trump and he's Fauci.
Mm-hmm.
It's because he's the president and he's just a medical director of sorts.
Not just because he's Trump. That's the only reason why he's not allowed to make mistakes to them.
Well, yeah, I guess there is a bit of his ego coming into play there. But what do you guys think of the moderator? In my opinion, she's being a little bit less confrontational than.
No, I think she's relatively fair. It seems.
You just fancy her, and you're just trying to big her up to try and hope that she watches it so you can get some.
Maybe DarkCon is, but I don't care.
That's what I meant. DarkCon, DarkCon.
Of course, that's the reason why. It's the whole reason.
He likes some brown-skinned girls.
It's the whole reason of why I was upset of the whole Rin drama. When No.
Yeah, I mean, you kept on looking at those boobies.
Oh, jeez.
Bouncy, 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 bouncy.
Oh, good lord. Shut the fuck up. But anyway, yeah. But in all seriousness, though, I think she's being less confrontational than what the last two moderators were doing.
Oh yeah,
Chris Wallace and what's her name from the vice presidential debate.
She's definitely better than both of those moderators.
Virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than the flu. He went on record and said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want us to panic. He didn't want us. Americans don't panic. He panicked. But
yes, they do.
Again.
In the meantime,
Pause again. Before we go any further, what Biden's just said, from my own perspective as a centrist, I don't have a horse in this fucking race. It's just completely and utterly factually incorrect. The WHO didn't know what the fuck they were talking about in January. Fauci didn't know what the fuck he was talking about in January. So how the fuck could Trump know how bad or anything was in January when everybody else didn't goddamn know how bad it was going to be in January?
Well, to be honest, I think the WHO did know. They just lied for China.
No, they didn't. They didn't even know it was airborne.
The WHO, like Teenage Wasteland.
Exactly, yeah.
Found out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing, and a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving. It's a dangerous problem.
Well, this is
I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, and then we're going to move on.
I don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it. You have raised a lot of money, tremendous amounts of money, and every time you raise money, deals are made, Joe.
Z Commander says Americans don't panic. Citation on the small scale. The end of the last election. Precisely, Z Commander. Like, there was all the protests, and actually there were some riots that happened right after Trump was elected and then inaugurated. And not to mention, as soon as the information did come out, Americans were panicked. They were panic buying in the grocery stores. It's not like Trump told everybody panic buy, or anybody really technically said panic buy. So
did he suddenly forget the whole toilet paper shortages that we had?
Yeah, exactly. So what is it? I mean, I love America and I love my people as Americans, but ultimately the whole Americans don't panic talking point is just that's a little bit of an
factually incorrect,
overly optimistic generalization on the American people, Joe.
I could raise so much more money. As president and as somebody that knows most of those people, I could call the heads of Wall Street, the heads of every company in America. I would blow away every record, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position. And then you bring up Wall Street. You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street because you're the one that takes the money from Wall Street, not me. I could blow away your records that, like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact, we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny fraction of the money that she was able to.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on.
Don't tell me about Wall Street.
Average contribution, $43.
All right,
Damn,
we're going to move
he's
on to our next
flexing.
section, which is national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just last night, top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election. Both countries have obtained U.S. voter registration information, these officials say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President.
Yes, supporting the Democrats and going against Trump.
Oh, brother. This is going to be juicy right here.
To put an end to this threat, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay
What
a price.
price?
And it's been
Are
overwhelmingly
you going to go
clear.
fight a war against them? For sending fucking memes and trying to do Facebook ads? You're going to go fight a war with them? Going to go start a war with Russia, are you, mate? Well done.
He's gonna wave his finger at them, saying, "No, no, no, no."
What are you going to do? Are you going to possibly institute a no-fly zone, Joe?
No, he's going to put a red line. He's going to put a red line down in that sand and
He's
move it.
redlining again.
Oh, yes, exactly. But no, I was saying that because that's like one of the lines that lost Hillary Clinton the election last go-around. You know, the whole no-fly zone in Syria thing.
This election, I won't even get into the last one. This election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price.
Yeah, supporting you and going against and causing fucking riots in Portland and sending bloody letters to people to try and stir up more racial hatred, saying that they're the Proud Boys, to stir up more people to do stuff. Get your facts straight before you actually start saying that, oh, look, they're trying to help Trump. What, by intimidating, by impersonating Proud Boys to try and stir up racial hatred to go against Trump? That makes sense.
I do think I recall it being said that Russia is now favoring Biden over Trump nowadays.
They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's talking to him a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks. We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn.
Oops.
He's being fed information that is Russian, that is not true. And then what happens? Nothing happens. And then
Here
you find
we go,
out
folks.
that everything is
Doors
going
have
on
been
here
opened.
about
Doors
Russia
have
is
been
wanting to make
opened.
sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because they know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president
take their
is
money.
unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question. Why isn't that being done? Any country that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
President Trump, same question to you. Let me ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond. For 2 elections in a row now, there has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term to put an end to this? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, let me
Pause
respond
it for a
to
second.
the first part as
All right, go.
For the first election, they're trying to slip in the fact that it's been proven that Russia actually interfered in the first election. It's only proof that Russia bought Facebook advertisements. That's it. That's
Well,
it. That's
yeah,
your interference.
Well, also the amount of money that was put in was tiny compared to, the news media, the U.S. news media, and other organizations that have put in money into the election trying to affect it. So foreign influence is very small.
Yeah, I mean, unless we're going to make laws against international trade and that sort of stuff, I do not see of what could be done in that area. I mean, it's not like they were literally rigging the election count, the voting counts or going on, or donating money directly into the pocket of Trump or his campaign.
Well, I have a quick question, which is going to be more hypothetical because it doesn't need to be answered by anybody on the panel. If we're going to go on to the point of Joe Biden saying that anybody that's taking, for instance, foreign money, why is it that it's okay for Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and others of ilk to pay money into the Clinton Foundation, directly stating that this is to do with the election?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do remember that, vaguely at least.
Joe answered. Joe got $3.5 million from Russia, and it came through Putin because he was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife, and you got $3.5 million.
He looked like he got the confidence smacked right out of him. Like as soon as the video went from just looking at Trump to looking at both Trump and Biden, you could see the look on Biden's face that he had the confidence smacked right out of him, and now he's trying to hide it with a grimace.
Dude, he looks like he just got he looks like he got a dildo inserted right in his ass. No lube.
I'm really surprised that you know what that looks like.
I've heard screams before.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Let's move on, though.
$3.5 million, and someday you're going to have to explain why did you get 3.5. I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that, and through John Ratcliffe, who is fantastic, DNI, he said the one thing that's common to both of them, they both want you to lose, because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion, going to $420 billion a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to Ukraine. There has been nobody tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, they were so bad. They took over the submarine port. You remember that very well. During your term, during you and Barack Obama, they took over a big part of what should have been Ukraine. You handed it to them, but you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening, and it should have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people.
Doesn't that sound like too quo quo?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Somebody just had a news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family, but what he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clean it up and talk to the American people. Maybe you can do it right now.
Vice President Biden, you may respond. 30
Please,
seconds. And then I do want to follow up on the election security.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president, I have released all of my tax returns, 22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying you a lot. Russia's paying you a lot. China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country, all around the world. And China's building a new road.
Pause.
Go on.
If you're going to try and conflate with two different issues, if you're trying to assert that Donald Trump's taking money, which he may or may not be doing, which is an argument that you can and cannot have, that's not what this is about, and then conflate the different issues of, oh, you do business in these countries, that means these countries give you money. No, that means he was a fucking realtor. He owned fucking buildings. Of course countries are going to pay him. That's what happens when you're a realtor. Like, I don't understand how you don't know this. Like, if you own stuff, people pay you money for it, including countries pay you money for stuff. That's how business works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my biggest problem with the whole Trump doing, taking foreign money sort of thing, is because people are not like taking it into consideration, not taking into context the fact that he also had some of his business set up internationally. So of course there's going to be some money taken in, but in what way is that money being taken in? Is it being taken in directly into his campaign or whatever while running for president, or is it just being run through his businesses that he has set up in those countries?
Well, again, going back to what you just said, if it is going through his business, for instance, and some countries buying his stuff from business, and then he decides to put that into his campaign, that's no different than Saudi Arabia, Qatar, or others putting it into a foundation, and then you taking the money out of the foundation to put it into your campaign.
Well, isn't that like just a direct a free donation that they were given to the Clinton Foundation?
Interesting, in an election year where beforehand they never done it before. Even when Haiti had that.
As far as I known and heard about that whole situation, there was like no trade-off for business. Like, oh, you get this service from my business, and then for this amount of money that you give me.
Sure.
I don't know if it's quite exactly the same.
Well, it is the same. If you're getting money off of China, for instance, China decided that they're going to give you some money for rent or something that they bought off of you, and then you use that money that China has given you for a real estate or transaction, and then you lose it for your campaign. That's no different than another country putting money into a foundation and then you using that money from a foundation to do your campaign. If it's okay for one side of it being done, then it should be okay for the other side, or does that not count because it's Trump?
No, I find a business dealing and a donation to be two different things as far as as far as how that money was received for an election campaign. But this might just be a little bit of an agree to disagree, but I'll have to think about it a little bit further. But for right now, that's how I stand. For right now, anyways.
Of course, you have overseas. So what's going on here? Why don't release your tax return or stop talking about corruption?
President Trump, your response.
First of all, I called my accountants, underwrote it. I'm going to release them as soon as we can. I want to do it, and it'll show how successful, how great this company is. But much more importantly than that, people were saying $750. I asked them a week ago, I said, What did I pay? They said, sir, you prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax. Over the last number of years, tens of millions of dollars I prepaid. Because at some point they think it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody
tell you
told
when
you
you
that.
could release
Excuse
them?
me. And it wasn't written whenever they write this. They keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Number one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make money from Russia. You made $3.5 million, Joe, and your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know, maybe you're not, but you're the big man, I think. Your son said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All right, gentlemen, I want to ask you both some questions
I have
about
to
all of this,
respond
but
to
I'm going to let you both respond very quickly. You just said you spoke to your accountant
Yes.
about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you
As
have
soon
a
as the audit is
deadline for
finished.
when you're going to release them
I
to the
get
American
treated
people?
worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because
you
I have a
don't
lot
have
of
a time.
people in there, deep down in the IRS, they treat me horribly. We made a deal, it was all settled until I decide to run for president. I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's worse than paying. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes. I paid in advance.
I want to ask you both about questions regarding your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised.
Well, that
Both
missed
camps.
the
Talk
fucking
about-
corruption charge. That was a good dodge, wasn't it? Oh, we're going to let you both respond, but we're just going to pull you up on your tax returns, Trump. We're not going to go on the corruption of Russia or China or the fact that we know that Biden has been paid off by his son, and we know that $3.5 million went to Joe Biden from Russia. We're not going to touch on that. When are you going to file your tax returns, Trump? Well, when I can. Well, when are you going to do it?
this more broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us. Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years you're going to reduce your taxes. Nobody knows it, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When last time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on, folks.
Very quickly, President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions to both of you on this.
I was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years. It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign. No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller and 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place spent $48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. $48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent $1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong, because the kind of things that you've done and the kind of money that you're
just a little bit of a quick comment. I know this is kind of petty, but he looks, as far as Trump's weight goes, he looks fine in the front view, but from the side view, he looks fat.
And fair enough. I mean, the substance of what Donald Trump just said there is actually really important. Where people keep on bringing up the Mueller investigation and everything else like that, I know that people go, oh, well, there's the tu quo bit that was the reason why he got impeached. Remember that the impeachment was only due to interpretation. There was no actual direct tu quo there, and each party obviously denied it. But even if you go down that road, Mueller investigation found nothing. No collusion, no nothing. No credible sources that was criminally negligible. In other words, there was nothing that they could actually prosecute or, hold him over, so to speak. I know that they can't physically do that while he's president. I do get that. But there was nothing that they could actually do for afterwards or anything else like that. There was no criminality there. And for anybody that keeps on coming back to the Mueller investigation, which took, up to 3 years of the 4 years of his presidency to go through, found nothing of credible sources whatsoever. And you want to keep on bringing that back to say, oh, that's Russia collusion, that is.
Yeah,
where?
That actually reminds me back to my my one little highlight video that I did, talking about the Mueller probe, that it found pretty much nothing. And see you later, Libertarian Native. It was nice for you to have joined along. Yep. So, moving on.
And your brother made money in Iraq, millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal. With
Oh,
regard
but
to
they were
Ukraine,
inappropriate. Interesting choice of answering there.
we had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out U.S. policy. Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing, number one. Number two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about? China.
Pause for a second.
The only guy made.
Go on.
That was really, really sly by what Biden just did there. He was trying to suggest that the reason why Donald Trump got impeached was because he was trying to bribe the other president, the Ukrainian president, to do something, to get him to find some dirt. Remember, the actual words and phraseology was, can you do an investigation into what was happening with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden? It wasn't a case of, can you find dirt? It was, can you do an internal investigation?
Okay.
So
yeah, I can't remember the exact wording of that phone call. That was, that was floated around back in the early parts of last year. Exactly.
I have a good memory.
All right.
Money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
President Trump,
deal with China.
I will say that is a little bit of a harder subject to tackle than the whole Donald Trump did business dealings with Saudi people in Saudi Arabia and with people in China, purely business dealings, and the supposed claim that he was helped directly by Russia in the election of 2016.
Let me
By the
ask
way,
my question to you.
Could I just one thing?
Very quickly.
His son didn't have a job for a long time, was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that. And he didn't have a job. As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000 a month. Listen to this. 183, and they gave him a $3 million upfront payment.
All right.
And he had no energy.
I'm going to let the vice president
That's
respond to that quickly, and
100%
then I need to get to a
dishonest.
question to you. Very
No
quickly,
basis
Vice
for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump, this is for you. Since you took office, you've never divested from your business. You've personally promoted your properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to, which is everybody knows about it, it's listed. The bank account was in 2013. That's when it was. It was opened it was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
If this really holds up to scrutiny as far as at least the timeline goes, well, then that would mean that this is like basically a big fat nothing burger as far as the election goes. So Biden's point like really falls flat on its face. So fair response there, Trump.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money every
President Trump,
place he
thank you.
goes.
We do
Not
need to
true.
move on. I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden, about China. Let's talk about China more broadly. There have,
China.
of course, President Trump has said that they should pay
China.
for not being fully transparent in regards to
China.
coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules, not like he has done. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up, not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China
Pause.
would...
Go on.
What he's just talking about there is talking about the fact of you need to have that what Donald Trump has done to do a deal and everything else of that is that you're supposed to be able to keep your intellectual property. That means that you're able to keep your name, your designs, for Americans, your patents, right?
Mm-hmm.
What Joe Biden just said is we'll get rid of that, which then lets China do what they have been doing for absolutely years and copy the shit out of everything because they don't abide by intellectual property.
Yeah, because they're so powerful that other people's laws don't hardly bother them. Just to get down to the basic nub of it.
Well, to be fair, it's more of a case of it's not really an international law. It's more of a should we say an international agreement that if you have a patent or a law in one aspect, then it transfers to the rest of the people that you trade with. But China, being its own country, kind of can decide to be against that agreement, which it does and still is. Hence why you can buy all the crap that looks like Mac Pros, for instance, and things like that. You can buy for like 30, 50, 60 quid or whatever, because they're obviously not that. But they look like it.
By the way, what is a quid in a comparison to pounds over there in the UK?
A quid is just a pound. A quid just means one.
Okay, I got you.
Have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with Xi, when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin.
Bullshit.
I was just about to say you're gonna have to pause on that one.
That was like far after the mudslinging between him and Kim Jong Un. So you can just shove it, Joe.
Well, even to tackle the point more broadly, they were saying beforehand. Now remember, this is really fucking important. That beforehand, Kim Jong-un was getting ready to test nuclear weapons. He was getting ready to fire normal missiles almost as far as Hawaii. Hawaii were able to pick up missiles on their radar, which is why America was taking notice of their missile testing, right? So Trump went over, was able to negotiate a ceasefire and a version of non-testing. We can get into the fact that that didn't really work another time, but was able to negotiate on the open and on the surface. And then later on, through that embrace and talking, was able to get the first version of North and South Koreans, prime ministers and leaders, talking in the same fucking area that hasn't happened since, North and South Korea actually happened.
I'm just going to Google this.
I'm
just going to Bing this very quickly, but I have really not heard in quite a while anything about North Korea testing, or at least nothing real considerable as far as North Korean nuke testing goes. So in a while. So it at least seems on the surface, anyways, that Trump has at least slowed down things in North Korea, if anything else.
Yeah, and you don't do that by, doing what Joe Biden and every other president before him was trying to do, which was trying to be boisterous, say, no, we're going to tell you what to do. You have to take the point of the country as being a point of a country that can do damage. It may not be able to be a superpower, but it can do damage. And you have to respect that about North Korea. That means you have to give them respect to negotiate. Because last time America and everything else like that decided that we're going to help South Korea, technically the war still hasn't actually ended, just so people know.
So I'm not really getting anything on recent times. I mean, the most that it's getting is a whole bunch of talks about North Korea poised to want to test the next U.S. president, or be it like Trump getting his second term or Joe Biden getting his first term, wanting to test the next presidential term with their missile testing. So it doesn't say anything in the past. It's just more like flirting with ideas for the near future. But anyway, let's move on. So, but no actual testing in recent years.
And others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies. We make up we're 25% of the world's economy. We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run it, and that's what we did in upholding steel tariffs and a range of other things when we were president and vice president.
All right, let's talk about...
I want to call bullshit on that, actually.
North Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to respond to that.
Okay, very quickly, and then we're going to move on to North Korea.
with $1.5 billion from China to manage after spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force 2, number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year for introductions.
President Trump, on China policy, though, what
No, but wait
specifically
a
are you going to do?
Ooh.
What specific?
You're allowed to let Biden fucking waffle on about attacking his tax returns and things like that, but as soon as Trump starts going a little bit personal, which you could argue is a bit of a low belt, but in retrospect, it kind of is a tit for tat at the minute. If Biden's going to start it, Trump should continue.
I do want to say that was that one last interruption that the moderator did on Trump did raise a bit of a red flag. Honestly, I mean, I was hoping that Trump was going to go more onto the whole thing about how tariffs looked like under Obama, as opposed to go on the tax returns of Biden. But it is what it is. So let's see.
Well, before you play,
go on.
If anybody wants to have a look at how Biden and Obama would deal with dictats and theocracies, for instance, when you were paying, I can't remember the exact price, it's 65 million or 65 billion now. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but 65 million or 65 billion to Iran, for Iran to sign a deal to not start making their own nuclear power or nuclear weapons. That's what he's saying, that he would actually deal, as in he would pay them to not do stuff, not negotiate like Trump did, and make sure that there's equal balance. No, he wants to spend your tax dollars to make sure that people are still going to do it in secret anyway, which is the whole reason why Trump got out of the Iranian deal. But he's going to pay them like 65 million or 65 billion dollars for them to even just carry on doing it in secret anyway.
Yep, and I do want to just put in like a little disclaimer for everybody in the live chat who is so far watching. I am against tariffs. Principally, I am against tariffs and any kind of restrictions on free trade, internationally speaking, or at least I would say generally speaking anyways. China might be a little bit of an exception because of how inhumane they have been with the treatment of their own people, and and what they're threatening with other countries too, for that matter. But in the ultimate of things, not necessarily condoning Trump's exact actions in regards of tariffs and free trade with China, but nonetheless, we're just trying to talk about the actual facts here.
Do to make China pay? You've said you're going to make them pay.
First of all, China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave $28 billion.
New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers.
Taxpayers' money.
That's what?
Taxpayers' money. Didn't come from
China.
China.
You know who the taxpayer is? It's called China. China paid $28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it, Joe? They devalued their currency, and they also paid up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great farmers, because they were targeted. You never charged them anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry.
Okay.
And now we have a steel industry.
Okay, Vice President Biden, your response, please.
My response is, look, this isn't about, there's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about
facts about what they actually did compared to what you're saying that he did is malarkey, because facts are malarkey. I mean, that just doesn't follow at all.
So the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're making if you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making. And the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont, they're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I wouldn't
Pause.
go
so. Yeah, go on.
I have some that I want to say first. I wouldn't go so far to say that he does not want to talk about other people's family, Joe. So that last bit there is a bit hyperbole. But I do want to say that him going on, Joe essentially saying that it shouldn't be about his family or my family is a fair point. It should be more about the livelihood of the American people more than anything. So I don't know about everyone else, but I thought it was overall a fair response on Joe's part, if I was to be fair. What are you about to say, CS Guy?
From what you just said, I would actually say no, it's not a fair point, because if the Democrats are going to be the ones that bring up his family first and attack what his family have done, not done, or him as a person, rather than his policies or characteristics, then, tit for tat's fair game.
Well, fair enough. It might be a little bit of a case of weasel words on Joe's part, but just in the substance of purely looking at that statement. If I was to like look at things out of context and just look at that statement in of itself, it would have been a fair statement. But unfortunately, we have the entire rest of the debate to look at. So, fair game, CSK.
Yeah, no, very, very quickly, to go on to his point about middle-class America. Donald Trump, in the last election, was the only person to go and visit the Rust Belt. He was the only person to go and visit the flyover states. So when Biden says that he doesn't care about middle America and middle-class America, just by him doing his campaigning in the last election alone, did more than what the Democrats have done in the last 8 to 12 years of campaigning than when they didn't visit the flyover states.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about North Korea.
Excuse me,
I
just
do
for
want
1
to turn
second,
to
please.
10 seconds, Mr. President.
That's
10
a typical
seconds.
political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he looks. The family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk
I'm
about
not
North
a typical
Korea now.
politician.
Okay,
That's why I got
President
elected.
Let's
get off the subject of China. Let's talk around, sitting around the table.
All right.
Come on, Joe, you can do better.
We're going to talk about North Korea now. President Trump, you've met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times. You've talked about your beautiful letters with him. You've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range missile test. And yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal.
Wait, did she say North Korea, or what country did she say?
North Korea.
North Korea.
Oh, okay. So there's the news on as far as recent testing goes.
Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you forged? Just 30 seconds here because we need to get on to the next one.
So when I met with Barack Obama, we sat in the White House right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a nuclear war, and he does have plenty of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very good relationship, and there's no war. And you know, about 2 months ago, he broke into a certain area. They said, oh, there's going to be trouble. I said, no, they're not, because he's not going to do that. And I was right. Look, instead of being in a war where millions of people, Seoul, you know, is 25 miles away, millions and millions, 32 million people in Seoul, millions of people would be dead right now.
President
we
Trump,
don't have
that's
a war,
30
and I have a
seconds.
good
Thank you.
relationship.
Vice President Biden, to you. North Korea conducted 4 nuclear tests under the Obama administration. Why do you think you would be able to rein in this persistent threat?
Because I'd make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because here's I made it clear. And
China don't care about North Korea. China do not care about North Korea at all. The only reason why they started caring about North Korea again is because they see it as a political leverage to get one over on Trump. That's it. They literally washed their hands of North Korea for a long, long period of time.
Interesting. Interesting. I mean, I guess it's only been like recent years that I've been like reading about North Korean relations and whatnot, but I've always thought that North Korea was pretty much China's puppet. But
yes, being yeah. No, you're correct. They were China's puppet, but China stopped subsidizing and sorting North Korea out in the 70s and 80s when it was the communists versus capitalism, so to speak. They made sure, China, that they were subsidizing all of the farmers with fresh food, with fresh water, milk, the same as the Soviets were. But they stopped for after I believe in 87 or 88 or 89, they stopped. They absolutely cut all financial aid and any sort of transactions, and in most cases trade, with North Korea because they just wanted to wash their hands of North Korea.
All right. So that would have been longer before I was even born, of when that China did decide that they were going to give up on North Korea. It's mostly in recent history when they consider them their pet.
Yeah, I mean, they still consider them their pet because it was still the idea of communism versus capitalism in the North Seoul. The idea of proxy wars still occur even in Asia.
Michaela Stray Cat says, China doesn't give a shit about North Korea unless they can use them to prop up the idea of a new war on the horizon. Fair enough point, Michaela. Like that, I have no doubt that China doesn't actually care about them, like doesn't care about the well-being of North Korea. But as far as care about them, as far as how much of a puppet they can use them, that was more of the type of caring that I was getting onto more than anything.
Then yeah, you would be absolutely correct, but not in a way in which she's trying to frame it as and he's trying to frame it as.
All right, we got 38 minutes. Well, we're 38 minutes behind, but let's go.
spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said, why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea? I said, because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue. What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy, who's a thug.
Go on.
He's saying right there that he was able to tell China to step up or step off, and because they wanted to do something to North Korea. Now, maybe that did happen. I'm not saying that it didn't. But what he's trying to allude to is that he's a big, strong bully, and he was able to tell China to step away and was able to control North Korea. But yet neither of that actually happened, because North Korea was still keeping prisoners of war and journalists, American journalists and stuff like that, under Barack Obama's tenure. So that didn't go too well, did it, Joe?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thug, and he talks about how.
I mean, in my personal opinion, if we have like American citizens that are going overseas to report on some incident going on internationally, and that country was to arrest and especially execute those said reporters, then that would be like an act of war, in my opinion.
No, I can agree with you on that one. But even when you have people that are escaping North Korea, under Joe Biden and Barack Obama's tenure, if they were so stringent in doing something to stop North Korea, why didn't they go and step up to North Korea and tell them that they need to feed their people? If Joe Biden's supposed to be this big, strong man that can make North Korea bend the knee, why didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
We're better off, and they have much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow up with you, Vice President Biden. You've said you wouldn't meet with Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Are there any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity to get the Korean Peninsula should be a nuclear-free zone.
All right, let's move on to.
Well, ideally, everywhere should be a nuclear-free zone, Joe Biden, but unfortunately, that's not the reality that we live in. But you're about to say, CS guy?
Before any of that even comes into play, an ideological utopia, if you will, in that aspect. But you have a country that has nuclear capabilities and another country that has nuclear capabilities. In whether you agree with this or not, North Korea is stating that they feel that they are incapable of being able to defend themselves against America, so that's the reason why they try to legitimize their nuclear program. Again, it's more propaganda, but you could argue that that's the reason, right?
Right.
If you're going to then say as an international negotiation tactic, give me all of your guns, give me all of your weapons, and then we can sit down and talk, that doesn't sound like that's a fair negotiation, does it? So why would you go and sit down?
You can't really strong-arm them into that sort of deal. I mean, literally the only way that you could get that is if you do send in the military, which I'm not being a John Bolton, y'all. I'm not actually proposing that we invade North Korea. But all the same, yeah, anyway, I digress.
American families.
They tried
Very
to
quickly,
meet with
10
him.
seconds,
They
President.
tried to meet with him. He wouldn't do it. He didn't like Obama. He didn't like him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay, I
know
gotta
for
give him a
fact they
chance to
tried.
respond to that
He
before we
wouldn't
move
do
on.
it.
You
And
know
that's
why?
okay. You know what? North Korea, we're not in a war. We have a good relationship. You know, people don't understand. Having a good
President
relationship
Trump,
with
we have
leaders
to
of
move
other
on, 'cause
countries
we have
is
a lot
a
of
good thing.
we have a lot of questions to get
Yes,
to.
not
Your
That's like
response.
saying we had a good relationship with Hitler before he, in fact, invaded Europe, the rest of Europe. Come on. The reason he would not meet with President Obama is because President Obama said, we're going to talk about
I mean, maybe Joe has a fair point in saying that Trump is using the word good to say good relationship with them. Maybe that's a bit of a misnomer on Trump's part. But all the same, that Hitler comparison is just so crappy. I mean, if we were to have like a peaceful, or at least quasi-peaceful relationship with Hitler so that we can like, for example, remain as much involved of the European campaign back during the 40s, late 30s and early 40s, well then that would have been a fair game right there. But unfortunately that wasn't the case to be. How sped up was the video again? Only by 25%, JC Armitage. But yeah, I don't know. I just found that Hitler comparison to be rather crappy.
I completely not agree with you. It's if you're going to talk about a dictator that is horrible to his people, then yeah, fair enough. That's a horrible thing to do. But if you're going to have a relation where you want to stop that dictator from being able to, one, attack your own citizens, and two, trying to get them to come to a negotiation table to be able to stop from attacking South Korea or anywhere else, then that's completely different.
Yeah.
Where you're talking about Hitler, between the 20s and the 30s, they started to attack different Eastern European countries before they even got to Poland. Czechoslovakia went on to Austria and places like that before they even started with Poland. That means that they're actually attacking different countries. To compare as bad as Kim Jong-il is and Kim Jong-un is completely a misnomer compared to Hitler and the relationships that you were having correspondently.
Yeah.
One is actually attacking other countries, which was Hitler, and the other one is unfortunately killing his own people. Again, very, very bad, but different relations internationally.
Mm-hmm. And let me put it this way, actually. I mean, just because that Trump uses the misnomer good to say that we have good relations with the North Korean leader, that's not to say or even imply that Trump is justifying the shit that is going on domestically in North Korea that Kim Jong-un is doing to his own people, Joe.
Yeah, no, very, very, very good point. Because if you're going to have a good relationship,
same thing
that doesn't
goes.
mean that
Same thing goes with Hitler. Just because you have good relations with Hitler to make sure that there is no war being done, or make sure that he is actually at the negotiating table rather than being a megalomaniac that wants to actually try to kill you and all your people, then that's not saying that his domestic policy with the Jews and other non-Aryans was justified. That's not saying that at all. Sorry, you were saying, CS guy?
No, I completely not agree with everything that you're saying. Saying that you have a good relationship with a bad country, it's like trying to say that you have a good relationship with Saudi Arabia and Iran. They treat their people absolutely horribly. But you can still say that you have a good international relationship with them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And hello, Metal Doomer in the chat.
Nuclearization. We're not going to legitimize you, and we're going to continue to put stronger and stronger sanctions on you. That's why he wouldn't meet with us.
All right,
And
let's
it didn't
move
happen.
on. Let's
Excuse
move on
me.
and talk about
He left
American
me a
families.
mess, Kristen.
President Trump. Okay, we do
They
need to move
left
on.
me a mess. North Korea was a mess.
We
And
need
in
to
fact,
move
if
on
you
so that
remember
we
the
can get
first
to all
2 or
of our
3
other
months,
questions tonight,
there was a
President
very
Trump.
dangerous period in my first 3 months before we sort of worked things out a little bit.
Okay.
There was a they left us a mess. And Obama would be, I think, the first to say it was the single biggest problem he thought that our country.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy. One of the issues that's most important to them is healthcare, as you both know. Today, there was a key vote on a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, and healthcare is at the center of her confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated it. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as well as you can to my people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy. They ran it. Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it.
Repeal and no replace. That's my advocacy as far as the healthcare front goes.
And we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with a brand new, beautiful health care. The Democrats will do it because there'll be tremendous pressure on them, and we might even have the House by that time. And I think we're going to win the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But
I gotta doubt on that front, Trump. Sorry, but not sorry.
Come up with a better health care, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important, we have 180 million people out there that have great private health care, far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care, people that have been successful, middle-income people, been successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families, under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine. He won't even have a choice. They want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on health care, and we're going to do even better.
Okay, Vice President Biden, yes, this is...
Did you hear that? They just muted him, folks. They just muted Trump.
Well, did he go over the time limit?
I think he might have gone a little bit over it, and then finally they were all like, okay, screw this. Boop.
For you, your health care plan calls for building on Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option.
Can you just pause it for a second? Just from a Brit Brom's point of view. If the Supreme Court, which everybody holds as the arbiter of the Constitution, if they do decide that the Obamacare is unconstitutional, does that not mean that regardless of what Joe Biden, if he was to win and the Democrats would win, they would never be able to do any sort of form of something similar to Obamacare, because it would always be ruled unconstitutional?
I don't really think so. I mean, if it's something even more left-leaning than what the Obamacare plan is, then I don't think that the Supreme Court ruling on, say, Obamacare itself will extend to something like, I don't know, Bernie Sanders' healthcare plan, for example.
So what would be the
I don't think
point
so.
of getting it? So what would be the point of getting it ruled unconstitutional then?
Well, the only thing it would, if it was to be ruled unconstitutional, would basically just be left up to the states if they want to implement their own system.
So does that mean that the states can implement any sort of unconstitutional law then?
No, there is some restrictions. However, since there's nothing in the Constitution that says the federal government can implement a healthcare system or mandated healthcare system. However, that is something that the states can decide if they want to implement their own mandated healthcare system.
But if it's ruled unconstitutional, that's the point I'm trying to make. If it's ruled unconstitutional, does that not mean that it would be an unconstitutional law?
No, it would only be unconstitutional on the federal level.
I mean, let's keep in mind here as well that the states, a whole lot of states anyways, have far more stringent gun control laws than even on the federal level as far as the United States goes. Like Texas and most all other red states.
Here's an example I will give you. For example, Roe v. Wade. If that was to be listened to and that was to be ruled unconstitutional, that would just turn it back to the states. It wouldn't make abortion illegal in the entirety of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing if it was to happen with Obamacare, getting rid of it entirely federally, it wouldn't make it illegal that the states couldn't implement their own system similar to it, or more of a socialist healthcare system if they so wanted to, because each state can decide what they want according to the 10th Amendment.
Okay,
yeah, as Mikhail Stray Cat says in the chat, 10th Amendment. Go on, CS guy.
Okay, so what I'm getting is that if something is ruled if something is ruled unconstitutional, then it means it cannot be mandated by federal government.
Correct.
That'd be a little bit more correct.
Yep, that's fair enough.
Public option is an option that says that if you, in fact, do not have the wherewithal if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now, by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly, the idea that I want to eliminate private insurance, the reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why not one single person with private insurance would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance.
That's a lie.
Right.
Yeah, if you're going to mandate that people have to have Obamacare to begin with, then you're kind of forcing them to, have Obamacare to begin with. You're kind of forcing them to have that policy.
JC Armitage in the chat. Is the actual debate over and we're just watching replay? We are like 48 minutes behind, but we are at like 9:40 p.m. and that timer, as far as how far behind we are, just keeps on increasing. It's like they're going over 1 hour and 30 minutes as far as this debate goes. But we'll see how much longer it goes.
They chose, they wanted to go to something else. Lastly, we're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions. None, zero. You can't do it in the ether. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's never come up with a plan. I guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we've been waiting since 17, 18, 19, and 20. The fact, I still have a few more minutes. I know you're getting anxious. The fact is that he's already cost the American people, because of his terrible handling of the COVID virus and economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance.
Josh underscore EJTG, a newcomer, welcome to the show, by the way, says in the live chat, yeah, it's over. Okay, maybe it has just recently ended, because I don't think that the timer is increasing anymore. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's done. Anyways.
Insurance. And he wants to take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare, and over 110 million people with pre-existing.
Oh no, that's very charitable of you, Joe. Trump explicitly wants to take away your health care, y'all. No. What he wants to do is give people the choice on whether or not they want to get a health care plan, regardless of, with no effect to their tax returns. Just get rid of the individual mandate on that front. That's it. I mean, just because, yeah.
Conditions and
just because people choose for themselves that they do not want to get a health care plan, that they don't want a health care plan anymore, and therefore that number of people covered inevitably goes down, that does not mean jack squat, Joe.
All the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions. What are they going to do?
I have a follow-up for you, Vice President Biden. It relates to something that President Trump said. He's accused.
Greyhound to ask, did Biden say he support private health care? What? I think he supports some weird public option idea of where it's a mishmash between private and public health care. I don't know. He's kind of weird on that. He's not as firm-handed as Bernie Sanders, for example. But anyway, what were you about to say, CS guy?
By the sound of it, he's suggesting a version of a Canada style where you have a government issue public insurance option, or a public insurance or public option, with the added points of having private insurance on top of that, private options.
Mm-hmm.
So he sounds like he wants a mixed version of it, so a more integrated version of Obamacare.
You know, I had to look again back at all the different healthcare models across the Western world, because I'm starting to think that the definition of single payer as far as healthcare goes, that has been botched to oblivion. Because you have, for example, the NHS in the UK, which basically almost all the healthcare is publicly owned and ran, except for maybe the drug companies. Whereas Canada, as you just said there, and as I've heard before, there is still some private market that might not be as big as the US, but is at least bigger than the UK anyways. But yet they're both considered a single payer by all the Bernie bros, and considered better by extension, better than the US anyways. It just doesn't make sense to me, the whole definitions thing of single payer. Anyway.
Well, the NHS is a single payer because it is it's a ring tax. So it's a single payer, but Canada is a public option.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have absolutely no doubt that NHS UK is a straight up single payer healthcare system, because, the name is implied, there's literally just a single payer. That being, well, the government technically taking the money from everyone else to pay for everyone's healthcare. But in Canada's case, there's not just the government that is through taxes paying for people's healthcare. There's also all the people that are getting their healthcare privately, which means that there are multiple payers going on with all the multiple different healthcare plans. So, but yet that's considered a single payer at the same time, equally speaking, to places like Norway and UK by all the Bernie bros. And it just doesn't make sense to me as far as this healthcare debate goes. Like I said, I'll have to make a video sometime talking about my grievances of the whole healthcare debate some other time.
Accusing you of wanting socialized medicine. What do you say to people who have concerns that your health care plan, which includes a government insurance option, takes the country one step closer to a health care system run entirely by the government? What's
I
your
say
response
it's
to that?
ridiculous. It's like saying that, you know, we're the idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think healthcare is
It's stepping that way, Joe. Do not downplay it.
it's not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable health care. And I am very proud of my plan. It's gotten endorsed by all the major labor unions.
Everybody should have a right to other people's services, y'all.
As well as a whole range of other people who in fact are concerned in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives, and this is going to give some people an opportunity to have health care for their children. How many of you home are worried and rolling around in bed tonight wondering what in God's name you're going to do if you get sick? Because you've lost your home insurance, your health insurance, your company's gone under. We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate, and that's what I do.
President
Excuse
Trump,
me, he was
your
there
response.
for 47 years.
Healthcare is not all right, says Mikhail in the chat. Preach. Preach.
He didn't do it. He was now there as vice president for 8 years, and it's not like it was 25 years ago. It was 3 3/4. It was just a little while ago, right? Less than 4 years ago. He didn't do anything. He didn't do it. He wants.
I love all these freak out faces that Joe keeps on giving in this second debate right here. Like, one thing that I can definitely at least say in this debate compared to the first debate is that Joe Biden's body language looks considerably worse in this debate than in the first debate. But that's just my opinion.
No, I'm completely and utterly with you. It seems that Trump's shots almost physically hurt him when he says it.
It really does.
And it's not that he wants it. His vice president, I mean, she is more liberal than Bernie Sanders and wants it even more. Bernie Sanders wants it. The Democrats want it. You're going to have socialized medicine, just like he went with fracking. We're not going to have fracking. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop fracking. Then he goes to Pennsylvania after he gets a nomination, where he got very lucky to get it. And he goes to Pennsylvania and he says, oh, we're going to have fracking. And you never ask that question. And by the way, so far, I respect very much the way you're handling this, I have to say.
By the way,
but somebody should ask the question.
You can ask
he goes for a year. There will be
We
no
have
fracking.
we do have a number of topics we're
No,
going
but
to get
that's a
to.
big- that's a big question.
We're going to get to. We're going to get to.
It's the same thing with socialized
I have to
medicine.
respond.
Vice President, your response, please.
By the way, I do want to say that I've said earlier that in my opinion that this debate moderator is doing better than the last two for the vice presidential and the first presidential debate. Apparently Trump just said it right there a few seconds ago that even he thinks that the moderator is doing a fair job. So
Yeah, I think she slips a couple of times, but overall,
Yeah.
I think her impartial. She's trying to be impartial, and that's all you can be as a human, is try to be as impartial as possible.
she definitely slips, but we'll see of where all the more loyal Trumpist political commentators on the YouTubes have to say about this debate once it's all said and done and reviewed.
I'm pretty sure, for example, if you wanted to listen to a more right-wing commentator, Ben Shapiro probably will give a fair look at her, because he's usually critical of Trump and everything. So I think he would be the best if people want to look at some more right-wing commentators.
I'll definitely have to listen to his debate review. I don't know if how much I've actually but Ben Shapiro has like on his channel, The Daily Wire. I think he has stopped doing the full podcast episodes between him and his other three co-hosts. Excuse me, Mike Knowles, Andrew Clavin, and Matt Walsh. I think they pretty much stopped that and doing it as strictly a subscription exclusive thing, So I don't know if we're going to be able to see.
No, he still releases, I think, his he gives his views of debates. Like, he's given his own.
He releases
separately.
shorts, but he doesn't release the full podcast.
Maybe not the full podcast, but you could get like a general idea.
Mm. Actually, I was almost thinking more of a AJW as far, actual Justice Warrior as far as opinions on this.
He's good too. Yeah.
People deserve to have affordable health care. Period. And the Biden care proposal will, in fact, provide for that affordable health care. Lower
Go on.
I don't know how many of you are actually good at English or anything, but when you have 3 periods or 3 full stops, that means that you've cut off part of the sentence. It means it's a continuation. You've stopped it, but there is a continuation of what you're going to say.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I found that funny. Sorry.
I haven't been paying closely attention to that as far as sentencing structure goes. But okay.
Well, he just said period 3 times. He just said period, period, period. That means, 3 full stops at the end of the sentence. It doesn't matter. It's just a quirk.
Premiums. What we're going to do is going to cost some money. It's going to cost over $750 billion over 10 years to do it. And they're going to have lower premiums. You can buy into the better plans, the cheaper plans, lower your premiums, deal with unexpected billing, and have your drug prices drop significantly. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done a thing for anybody on health care. Not a thing.
Tristan, when
Very
he
quickly,
says,
then I want to talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening
public
on Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized medicine and healthcare. When he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare. Totally destroyed, and destroying your Social Security, and this whole country will come.
Well, to be fair, Trump, it's not. I don't know if it's about destroying your Medicare. It's more about expanding Medicare and possibly rearranging the plans within Medicare, possibly. But
I mean, from, I suppose, an impartial point of view, though, I'm going to have my biases anyway. But Donald Trump there is kind of playing the Democrats' game there, where he's trying to pull on the fear factor of, socialized medicine, socialize this, socialize that. Now, I know where I am in essence of the chat and the room and everything else like that. But let's be honest. A public option, though is a version of socialized healthcare, is not in which Donald Trump is trying to suggest it is. If you have a public option like you do in Canada, that does not mean that you are going to lose all of your private insurance. Like he is trying to suggest.
Yeah, I mean, that's what my line of thought was, too. I mean, if you have a public option, it's not full-on socialism for the country, nor even for the healthcare industry. If you had, like, the NHS in the UK, I would say that that's healthcare at least going full socialism. That's not to say that the entire economy of the UK is socialist, but just the healthcare sector in of itself. But if there's a public option, it's not even near as socialist as UK. But that's just my opinion as far as how to gauge countries' socialisms and their different sectors of the economy.
Sure.
Bernie Sanders tried it in his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make it work.
Okay,
let's let Vice President Biden
respond.
It doesn't
Vice
work.
President
He's
Biden
a very
response.
confused guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against Joe Biden. I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them.
Well, to be fair, Bernie Sanders has really inspired the Democratic Party to want to go further and further into single-payer healthcare territory. So he's not being completely off base when he brings up Bernie, dude. So anyway.
I mean, from an even more outward-looking perspective, you didn't actually. I know you did, but in essence, Biden, you didn't technically beat him. It did for the point of delegates, which is done by the actual party itself. You could argue that they decided the party to back a person who had a lower percentage ratings to begin with than Kamala Harris, and she was one of the lowest polling people. So yeah, you didn't pull any strings or have any person to help you, with Bernie Sanders literally topping the polls all the way into the end. But you're the god, mate. You're the god.
I am the Democratic Party.
To be fair, he's as corrupt as one.
Joe Biden he's running against. And the idea that we're in a situation that they're going to destroy Medicare, this is the guy that the actuary at Medicare said, if in fact, at Social Security, if in fact he continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security will be bankrupt by 2023 with no way to make up for it. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare. So the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare, come on.
He tried to get rid of. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago. Years ago, go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All right, let's move on. I'm going to move on.
Mr.
President, I have to move on to the next question.
They said
or
the
else
stock
we're not
market
going to have
will
time to talk
boom
about it.
if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's move on to the next question.
The stock market isn't a very good gauge for how good the economy is going. Just saying.
Very quickly.
The idea that the stock market is booming is his only measure of what's happening. Where I come
Wait,
from
hang on a minute. You told Donald Trump that he wasn't allowed to fucking respond, and now you're letting Biden respond to something that Donald Trump only put in a quick quip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very questionable at best. But he's not just using the stock market as a gauge for how well the economy is going. I mean, he's mentioned the unemployment rate and how many jobs in manufacturing have been created, more specifically, at least in the first debate, Joe, so get off of it. And see you later, Mikhail. Thanks for sticking around as long as you did. And JC Armitage in the chat says, Social Security is already bankrupt. What the fuck is he talking about? Fair enough.
And Claymont, that people don't live off of the stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis, the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more dollars. $700 billion more dollars. Because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol
They
Hill.
got an extra $1,000 to $3,000.
Are through the roof,
All right.
and he doesn't come from Scranton. That's like he lived there for a short period of time before he even knew
we're
it.
gonna move on to
Oh,
the next
Trump,
And the
question.
people of
Trump.
Pennsylvania
Let me
were
move
sitting
on to
back.
my next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As of tonight, more than 12 million people are out of work, and as of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families are going hungry every day. Those hit hardest are women and people of color.
Yeah, thanks to the lockdown measures that have been put in place by all these authoritarian governors.
They see Washington fighting over a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to.
Whoa. Hang on a minute. Remembering that the Republicans footed the bill, but yet the Democrats rejected it because they said that they had their own bill.
Yep.
So, wait a second, how's that work?
Not to necessarily justify it, but indeed, she's kind of bullshitting there. And you know what? This is the part of where that she's starting to get challenging of Trump. So, Kristen, you're kind of losing points of credibility as far as your moderating skills go. Don't get down this route, otherwise you're going to be remembered as just as bad as Chris Wallace. But anyway.
Yeah. DarkCon's not going to fancy you anymore.
I swear I will not go as hard on her as I did on Rand during that drama.
I mean, is that really the language that you want to say? You're not going to go as hard on
Okay,
her?
shut the fuck up, you.
I do.
You're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House because of her. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories on a date called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and it's gone through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right, Mr. Vice President.
You know, the Republican leader in the United States Senate said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why isn't he talking to his Republican friends?
Let me follow up with you, Vice President
we made a
Biden,
deal, the
because
Republicans
let me
will
ask
pass
Vice
it.
President Biden a question. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have, and they have pushed it. Look.
Okay, fair enough. Now she's starting to challenge Joe Biden, equally speaking. Anyways.
They passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer. This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets and states that have to balance their budgets, so they didn't have to fire.
Does Biden not realize that it hasn't been passed? Because it's been passed in one version of the House, that doesn't mean that it's then passed or ratified. It needs to go through every stage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a Brit bonger, and I even fucking know that.
Yep.
Have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter with
The
these
bill that was
guys?
passed in the House was a bailout of badly run, high-crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these states. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. We were going to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right,
By the way,
wanna-
if I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American, United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue, cops, firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk about the minimum wage, gentlemen. Mr. Vice President, we are talking a lot about struggling small businesses and business.
I don't feel like that whole budgeting issue right there was fully fleshed out. And she just I suffer like jet lag or whiplash rather with that change of subject going on from budgets, government budgets to minimum wage.
Neither of them really answered the question that was posed to him. Trump was closer to trying to hit the nail on the head, but he hit his thumb more than anything. But Joe Biden himself didn't even get the hammer into the fucking vicinity.
Knowing Trump, he's probably going to try to rewind the subject a little bit and go responding to Joe here in a second. So let's see what he does.
Owners these days, do you think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal minimum wage.
I do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out, too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to...
Wait. The minimum wage is going to hurt small businesses.
Even a simpler argument, before you go any further, even a simpler argument. If you are going to try and bail them out now, for an economy to work, it needs to be open. You himself, Joe Biden, has already said that he will close the economy back down again. He will put versions of lockdowns in place again, meaning that what he wants to do is hurt the economy while trying to spend tax dollars to try and save it. In other words, he's going to cause hyperinflation.
Yeah. We're already probably going to get it with Trump shenanigans as far as fiscal spending goes. And, as JC kind of says, deficit spend like the whole $27 trillion debt, how long can that shit truly sustain? How to kill small businesses, implement a $15 minimum wage. Exactly, JC Armitage. It did not work for Seattle, and it is not working for New York City. But yeah, he's just like putting forth a recipe of disaster, a recipe for disaster of where that we're going to be an all consumption and no production economy. We've already done bad enough in becoming that way with the pandemic lockdowns as they were from March through May, and now he's just going to exacerbate that if he was to win the presidency. Is what I'm getting here anyways.
No, with you on that one.
They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. Is not giving them any of the money.
We are going to move on to immigration,
but
I want to get
we
your
have
reaction.
to help our small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different.
I am totally against it, Trump. I mean, you're not exactly giving the most libertarian answer to this. He's all like, let the states handle this. Your answer or your response should be, don't raise it at all, Trump. Not let the states handle it.
To be fair, in some sense, I would let the states decide if they want to have a minimum wage. I'm against the minimum wage in general, but if a state wants to have a minimum wage, I don't give a crap if Texas wants to have a minimum wage. I just care what my state wants.
I mean, constitutionally speaking, I guess he is correct, but talking about in context of our current circumstance, of our current conversation, because he was responding to Joe Biden on the front of businesses being able to sustain themselves, and he was coming back at him saying, oh, these small businesses aren't going to be able to sustain themselves with a higher minimum wage, and yet he goes shifting from attacking that point to go on, oh, let the states handle it. If the states individually go raising the minimum wage, the small businesses within those appropriate states are going to get hurt by it. Trump? Stay on focus. Yeah. Stay on target.
Well, let me put it into a way that may be easy to digest. What Trump's literally just said is in most red states, they're probably not going to raise the minimum wage. In most blue states, if it's left to the states, they probably will. You will then be able to see by contrast how economically they stand against each other. you'd be able to do a like for like in similarities as well.
Well,
So
sure.
but then that would boost your point rather than his point, and then most people would then get rid of the minimum wage, because for sometimes you have to let these individual states decide on their own mandate to implement their ideas, because their ideas are going to fall flat on their face. It's like a kid. It's like a kid. You have to sometimes let that kid eat dirt to realize that dirt's not good to eat.
I mean, I can understand that there's a little bit of a political strategization right there in that point, but I still find it to be a bit of a jarring flow of conversation that Trump is doing.
Well, whatever you feel about it, like, I agree, I don't like minimum wage and everything, but SCG is correct here, because not only is that good to argue in that way, it's just good politically. So you also have to look at it, what is it good in this debate? How is it going to argue well?
Okay. But by the way, it's CSG, not SCG. I thought I'd be a smart ass.
It should be a state option.
You said very
we have
recently.
to help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses. How are you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said very recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour.
I would go further back than that. I remember Trump saying that he would, ever since the 2016 election, during the general election part of the 2016 election, he had considered raising it up to 10. Like, Trump was a little bit of a flip-flopper when it comes to minimum wage. So just in general, I'm disappointed with Trump when it comes to minimum wage, and I don't expect him to do that much better here. So I don't know why I'm acting so surprised now that I'm looking at it all in hindsight, but nonetheless.
That's still the case?
And I would consider it to an extent, but
In a
what I really
second
like,
administration?
in a second administration.
Oh, God, Trump, no.
But not to a level that's going to put all these businesses out of business. It should be a state option. Look, I've lived in different places. I know different places. They're all different. Some places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would be
Okay, President
ruinous.
Trump, thank you. Quick response, Vice President Biden.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. These first responders, we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level. And there is no evidence that when you raise the minimum wage, businesses go out of business. That is simply not true.
We're going to talk about it.
That's a lie right there. I can pull up the example of Seattle more specifically, and not to mention San Francisco. They have a higher standard of living, in part helping because of their minimum wage. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the businesses themselves are not so much going out of business, but they had to do layoffs to prevent themselves from going out of business. So, quit bullshitting us, Joe.
Immigration. We're going to talk about immigration now, gentlemen, and we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr. President, your administration
Yeah, good, because I'm disappointed by both of these guys when it comes to minimum wage.
separated children from their parents at the border, at least 4,000 kids. You've since reversed your zero-tolerance policy, but the United States can't locate the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families ever be reunited?
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here, and they used to use them to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in through
But
merit.
how will you reunite these kids with their
Let me
families,
just tell you,
Mr.
they
President?
built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages, and then they had a picture in a
Pause.
certain newspaper.
Go on.
In this instance, Trump should be posing a question to the moderator. How am I supposed to be able to find these children's parents when they have been trafficked by cartels for them to be able to get into the country?
Yeah.
If the child doesn't have any way of being able to verify who their parents are, where they come from, and anything else like that, how are we supposed to be able to find them?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's kind of bringing up the same point as you are, but he's not wording it in the correct way as you are trying to word it yourself, CS guy.
And it was a picture of these horrible cages, and they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them. And then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him.
Do you
They
have a
built
plan to
cages.
reunite the kids
Yes,
with
we're
their
working on it we're trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this
525.
conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500 plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with.
Did he say
No, he
just
didn't.
500? That's a super minority as far as kids go. What are you about
Yeah,
to
but
say?
they didn't. But they didn't separate them as a disincentive not to come. They didn't do that. They did that because the children were able to come, but the subversions of the parents weren't able to. Remembering these are people crossing illegally.
Mm-hmm.
They real tough. We're really strong. And guess what? They cannot. It's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents, and it makes us a laughing
Well,
stock.
the 500 that you're
Every
just
note-
literally trying to quote. The 500 out of millions of children that come over.
Yeah.
Well done, I suppose. I believe they call that cherry picking, but I could be wrong.
But by the way, Rational Outlaw, or I heard somebody like tapping on the keyboard.
Sorry, I muted myself because of that.
Okay, but are you trying to like look up some numbers about how many children have been trafficked over the border?
Oh no, I was typing something out.
You're
Sorry.
typing something else? Okay, never mind then.
Notion of who we are as a nation.
Let me ask you a follow-up
Kristen,
question.
they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
they
to that?
did it. We changed.
did not.
They built the
separate
cages.
They,
Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about what
Who built the
talking about.
cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped. Their kids were ripped from their
He doesn't want to address it. Who built the cages?
arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me ask
Kristen,
you
I will
about
say this.
immigration.
They went
10
down.
seconds,
We
and then
brought
I need to ask
reporters,
a question.
everything. They are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
But some
and
of them
have gotten
haven't been
such good-
reunited
But
with
just
their
ask
families.
one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask.
Pause.
Who built the cages?
Let me ask about your
Go on.
Biden was saying that they're not being looked after. Trump is saying, look, they are being looked after. And then the retort from the moderator was, yeah, but they're not found by their parents. It's like, but that's not what he was responding to. He was responding to the claim that they're not being looked after.
Sorry, I was reading right here. Apparently, according to NPR, just looking at the little highlight right here, and of those 20% that were born outside the United States, very few of them were actually trafficked across the border. We know that trafficking does happen across the border. I'll have to pull up that article and actually read it in fuller detail and then present it on a later episode of Strike Force, but that's for later, folks. I'll have to come back to this whole issue about child trafficking under illegal immigration.
immigration policy, Mr. Vice President, the Obama administration did fail to deliver immigration reform, which had been a key promise during the administration. It also presided over record deportations as well as family detentions at the border before changing course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Got him!
Because we made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy and they want to do that is they're going to a country they've never seen before. I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you across the Rio Grande River and it's illegal. And you say, oh no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you. They've been here. Many of them are model citizens. Over 20,000 of them are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
Kristen, he had 8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've changed. Without having a specific, we got rid of catch and release. We got rid of a lot of horrible things that they put in and that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice President Biden, your response.
The catch and release, you know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released. And guess what? They showed up for a hearing.
They didn't.
I do want to say that is a technicality, in fact, is that in some cases, okay, apparently CS guy has rejoined the call. I do want to say that is a little bit of a technicality right there as far as deportations go under Obama, because they weren't actual deportations in that or some of them anyways. Some of them were actual deportations, but a good portion of these record deportations were not cases of where that the families like lived for a long period of time in the United States and then were deported. No, they were like crossing over the border and then they were just turned around like within the day that they were trying to cross over the border.
Well, the other part where he tries to say that they showed up to their hearings, like, no, the vast majority of them never showed up to their hearings.
Okay, that part I do not know even vaguely about.
It's the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise: why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
President Trump, your response,
So
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll move
It
on.
just shows that he has no understanding of immigration or the laws. Catch and release is a disaster. A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in. We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol.
To be fair, Trump, when I heard like catch and release coming out of Biden's or I don't know, for some I could be wrong, totally wrong in this, but for some reason I thought the implication was that they be releasing them back into Mexico, not releasing them like just wherever they want to go, including the areas within the United States. I don't know. What's your take on that, Rash?
Well, no, but I believe the correct term, which I think he is using correct catch and release correctly, it is that they'd be caught, they'd be given a hearing, they'd be let go until their hearing comes, and then whether their hearing they could be determined whether to be deported or not.
Okay, so they were
can seek
released.
asylum.
So they were released to stay in the United States. They weren't released back into Mexico.
No, if I recall, they aren't released back in Mexico.
Okay.
They're released in the United States.
Never mind then. I guess I was not following the flow of the conversation. What were you about to say, CS guy?
Yeah. I think that you two are missing one of the most important aspects of what Joe Biden's actually said there. One of the aspects that John Biden's actually said was that people shouldn't try to reclaim asylum from the countries that they're in or the first safe port of country that they're in to be able to gain entrance into the US. Now, take that from a logical point of view. That means if you're escaping from, say, Nicaragua, or you're trying to escape from Panama, or wherever, in the middle of the middle of America, right? As in the continent, not the country. You then have to go through all of the Badlands, up past all of the Mexican cartels and everything else like that to try and to get into the country to then have a hearing. Where the way that you do it, if you go to an embassy and you apply for it that way, you don't have to travel anywhere. You just have your hearings and then travel to after you've already passed. So you don't have to get a chance of being trafficked.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of trafficking, I just saved your link that you gave there in StreamYard, the StreamYard private chat. I saved that into one of my browsers. I'll take a look at that some other time.
No problem.
Out to find them. We would say, come back in
Thanks for your contribution right there, CS guy.
2 years, 3 years. We're going to give you a court case. You need Perry Mason. We're going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe. They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay,
But
President
they're
Trump,
very,
let's
very
give
few.
Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then
I don't think that would have been a very good thing for him to say there.
Yeah, lost that bit.
But I can already see the articles being written. Trump embraces alt-right race realist theory.
Yeah, that was very bad politically to say.
Yeah, these people are stupid, basically, in essence. It's just like, yeah, we can probably agree with that, but you just said that on national stage while talking about immigrants as a whole. You know, you're trying to be Pacific, but you know this is how this is going to go in the media. You know, you're now a racist somehow.
Right. I mean, they branded him a racist long ago, so I guess it's a bit of a moot point, maybe. But nonetheless, let's see.
Don't know the law, Joe.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Know the law, what he's telling you is simply not true.
Well, check it out. They don't come back.
Check it out.
All right, let's move on.
But we don't have to
the
worry
next
about it because they
section.
terminated it, so we don't have to worry about
Let's
it.
move on to the next
And you have
section.
525 kids not knowing where in God's name they're going to be and lost their parents.
Go ahead.
All right, let's talk about our next section, which is race in America. And I want to talk about the way
Oh boy, here it comes. The will you denounce white supremacy question.
Black and brown Americans experience race in this country. Part of that experience is something called the talk. It happens regardless of class and income. Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President,
Pause.
in the next 2 minutes,
Go on.
I don't know what it's like for you guys over there. I don't know what your complexions. I know what yours is, DarkCon. Obviously, I don't know what yours is, but it.
You don't
to
know
me,
what rashes is?
No, it doesn't really matter anyway. Because what I'm going on to say is that in my country, we get told by our dads and by our mums, respect the police. If the police pull you over, do everything that they say. And if you think that they've done something wrong, report them afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
While they're there, respect them, do what they say, in essence, not anything too stupid, obviously. But in essence, do what they say, respect them, and you'll be absolutely fine. That's done regardless of class. That's done regardless of race. That's done as a point of, if you act out to the police will act out to you. It's just, sorry to say my namesake, common sense.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, what exactly is she implying when she says the talk, quote unquote? Is the talk that she's referring that people are given to, people are giving a little darker skinned kids that you're gonna have to possibly fight the police because if that's part of the conversation, well then. Yeah, it's a little bit wrong go-abouts of the talk, as she's referring it to.
I think she's trying to imply that because you're brown, because you're black, because of you being a minority, so to speak, it's a case of this talk is to say that the police may do this because of your color. So that's just systemic racism in their minds.
You're right. It might not be necessarily explicitly saying you're going to have to fight or anything like that. It may be more along the lines of, get the children emotionally aggravated so that when they do grow up, they come to their own conclusion in their own head. They'll possibly have to fight or start being harshly resistant or something like that because
we haven't
got pulled over for speeding.
Yeah, we have an MP called Dawn Butler, and she did a story about how she was treated by the police or had fear of the police when she was younger. I'll do the story very, very quickly because I know that we all want to get on.
Right, yeah, we're still like almost 30 minutes behind, but very quickly in the live chat, Great Hound 2 says, I only got pulled over because I was speeding, not because I was black, and I didn't give the officer attitude. Quick question on that, in extension of that live chat right there, Great Hound. What skin color are you, if I may ask? You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but for context's sake.
I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. My daughter is a social worker, and she's written a lot about this. She has a graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to...
Okay, Great Hound, the second in the live chat says that he's black, so this is totally anecdotal right here, folks. But looking at the live chat right now, Greyhound 2 says, I only got pulled over because I was speeding, not because I was black. And he says that he is black, as a matter of fact, and he did not give the officer attitude. And so he's still alive and kicking right now in my live chat. It's totally anecdotal, but all the same, keep that optimism in mind.
Learn more about what was going on.
Even if it's a small grain of optimism.
I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts, for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent,
you're a fucking
no matter
idiot.
how wealthy or how poor they...
What?
You're a fucking idiot then. If you didn't tell your daughter or your child that don't do anything stupid when being pulled over by the police, then you are just a fucking idiot. We get told that all the time.
Oh
That
yeah,
if you get stopped by the police, do everything that they say, make sure that you don't do anything to aggravate them, and make sure that you show them your goddamn hands.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm going to bring this up as an example, and I do fully realize that Philando Castile did not do anything wrong, really, and Officer Yanez was a complete spineless wimp in this case, but Philando Castile, he got shot by Officer Yanez, who was being a little bit too jittery and thinking that Philando Castile was going to, in fact, reach his gun, but honestly, I think that there was no malice on Castile's part, so I thought that shooting was completely unjustified and think that Officer Yanez, ideally speaking, should have been at least charged for manslaughter, but I digress. But all the same, even though it was completely not his fault, he did not help the situation by kind of, being not very conscious about where he is, like reaching for his hands, like in the process of him saying, by the way, my gun is in the way of me getting my wallet, he starts to just naturally go for it, as Officer Yanez is at the same time, don't reach for it. I mean, Philando Castile was just being a little bit too gung-ho and wanted to reach for his wallet or whatever, and yeah, it ended up in being a whole freaking mess. Again, I must re-emphasize, not justifying that shooting in the least bit. Yanez committed manslaughter, I think, in my opinion, but nonetheless, it's an example of Philando Castile being somewhat dumb on his own part too. Was one of you about to say something?
No, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, there's always going to be bad cops. There is always going to be bad cops. But if you take the approach that as long as you do everything that the police say within reason, now obviously you shouldn't strip down butt naked if a police officer tells you to do that. But within reason, as long as you do what the police officer says, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of color or creed.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
They has to teach their child when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street, making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, yes sir, no sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are in fact the victim, whether you're a person making child of a $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is there is institutional racism in America, and we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these.
He's doing that emotional heartstring pull again. But on a different issue.
In a nice way. If he's stating that there's if there's systematic racism or institutional racism, as he said, then that would mean that it was under Obama and it was under Joe Biden for 8 years and they did nothing to stem it. So why would it change under him now?
Mm-hmm.
If it is true.
All men and women are created equal. But guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it, but we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says, that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access to opportunity to borrow money to start businesses. All the things we can do, and I've laid out a clear plan as to how to do those things.
Decide not to want to just give out freebies to people just purely based off of their skin color to, have the same skin color of people like 60, hundreds of years ago. Who were oppressed back then, is not the same as saying, let's just stop the inclusion right now. Those aren't the same thing, Joe. You're just bullshitting us, quite frankly.
Just to give people a shot. It's about accumulating the ability to have wealth as well as it is to be free from violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And again, he's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did such harm to the black community. And they were called, and he called.
Got him. Let's see how this goes.
Them super predators.
Yep.
And he said that. He said it, super predators. And they have never lived that down. 1994, your crime bill, the super predators. Nobody has done more for the black community than Donald Trump. And if you look, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, possible exception, but the
Joe Biden looks like he wants to die right now.
exception of Abraham Lincoln.
You were about to say something?
I was going to say that Joe Biden looks like, at the beginning, he's like, fuck, he's got me. And then because Donald Trump is now technically comparing himself to Abraham Lincoln, the whole point from a leftist point of view can be thrown out because Donald Trump's being a narcissist rather than addressing the point, even though I agree he is addressing the point.
Mm-hmm. JC Armitage, is Trump referring to the crime bill of 94? That is, in fact, what he just said he's referring to, JC.
Yep.
Nobody has done what I've done. Criminal justice reform. Obama and Joe didn't do it. I don't even think they tried because they had no chance at doing it. They might have wanted to do it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture, and everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina. He came in with this incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it. Tremendous investment is being made. Biggest beneficiary, the black and Hispanic communities, and then historically black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and they said, I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding, and I did. 10-year long-term funding, and I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them, and they like me and I like them. But I saved historically black colleges and universities.
Okay, and we're going to talk about both.
By the way, I know that his response is a little bit self-aggrandizing, Donald Trump's response to that. I mean, but I still think that it's a lot better than Joe Biden's response. I mean, Joe Biden was just doing a whole bunch of emotional heartstring pulling, whereas Trump was actually talking about the substance of what he had done and is attempting to do right now, and saying that Biden and Obama, for that matter, did not do much during their tenure. So Joe Biden's response was like almost purely emotional. Trump's was a little bit more substantive, so I give points to Trump on that one.
I would say Trump's is a lot more substantive. Yeah, he kind of said, as an analogy, I'm guessing, he was saying, nobody's done more for me, more than the black community than me, apart from Abraham Lincoln. Sure, maybe that could be classified as a little bit, head narcissistic, but it's purely an analogy, so on context of what he's actually said. He's then put down to the fact of he's then given him more money than what Obama did. He's also gone to the point of he's changed it so that they can have a 10-year funding plan rather than it being a year-on-year-on rolling contract, so to speak. And that in itself should prove to the fact that he's more interested in being able to give people funding that deserve it, regardless of skin color, than trying to pander to identity politics. For people that deserves it, he's doing it. For other people that don't deserve it, not doing it. That's regardless of skin color. That's to do with substance.
And by the way, JC Armitage in the chat, see you later. Have a good night. Thanks for joining us.
But your response to that, Vice President?
My response to that is
What were you about to say?
I was just about to say that after Joe Biden's responded, I'm probably going to get off because it's 4:30.
Yeah, it's like 4:33 a.m. in Brit Bong Lane.
Yeah, I'm a very, very late bed.
Yep. I'm getting pretty late. I'm pushing the needle as well. If I was to go to bed right now, I would only get about 7 hours of sleep for work, and we still only have like 25 more minutes to review here. But I'm gonna power through, y'all.
what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it. Not enough people. He talked about...
Go on.
He may have said it then, but his actions proved that he doesn't think that, because he reformed the bill when in office. If I say something 10 years ago, but yet my actions prove to the contrary of what I said, does my actions prove me correct? Or does what I said 10 years ago prove me correct?
The actions. My opinion, at least.
I mean, it was a hypothetical question, DarkCon, but okay.
Of course.
young gangs and the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park five innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them were.
You're saying?
Being exonerated doesn't prove innocence. That's why they are exonerated and not proven innocent. Being exonerated means that they are not being done for the crime anymore. That doesn't mean that they were innocent of said crime.
Mm-hmm.
Guilty of the crimes they were suggested. Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences. Over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that, in fact, initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation.
Wait a minute, did I hear that right? Did he say that he's going to try to pay states to try and reform their own justice system?
Yeah, he's going to try and pay them to be able to put in a drug court so that they can be convicted of drug crimes and then thrown into rehabilitation.
I'm pretty sure that's, I don't know. That almost seems to be a rather dirty way of playing politics. You're like basically trying to bribe governors with federally printed money. I don't know.
Not to jail.
I mean, the idea in itself, the principle of the idea in itself is probably a good idea, because you don't really want drug addicts that are doing these types of things because they're an addict
to
go to prison and go forward. You want them to be rehabilitated, but
I mean,
there's a massive problem.
I'm not speaking either way as to whether or not the bill is a good idea in of itself. I'm just saying that why pay other governors and state legislatures and whatnot to reform their own crime laws within their appropriate states? Why not just put out speeches and pressure these people to get the shit done?
Because it's called an incentive. The same as when the slavery was being abolished, they had to pay the slave owners for the property to be able to get it passed through. It's what you call political incentive. But you could argue whether that's ethically correct or not. The bill in itself.
Surely there's got to be other ways of incentivizing them rather than bribing them with money or earmarking them with money.
I agree with you. There is. That's why I agree with you, which is why I said that it's a bad way of politically incentivizing, and you could argue that point that it does or does not do that in a good way or a bad way. The thing that I'm trying to get across is that the bill in itself would probably be able to gain traction without anything. The only problem is, how do you distinguish between the dealers and the people that are an addict? Because if I'm a dealer and I know that I get to go to rehab...
Oh, God. The stream will end shortly unless you restart it. Check the connection. Oh, God. Had a little bit of a scare there, folks. Apparently my connection kind of crapped out for a split second. Hopefully we did not lose a whole lot of footage. Looks like we might be good for right now, but let's move on.
If I thought you did a good job,
I'm gonna get off.
All right.
See you later, man.
See you later, Jason. It was nice for you to come on.
See you later, guys. No, I appreciate it. It's been a while since I've been able to talk about politics, and I really enjoy talking about it. And this has been a lot better debate than what I was expecting it to be after the first one. So well done for Trump on this one, and well done for the moderator as well.
All right. Message me when you go listening to the rest of it of who you think won and whatnot. DM me or DM SFD group chat and Twitter what your final thoughts are of the debate when you fully get around to it.
Sure, we'll do. No worries. See you later, guys. Take care.
Have a good night. Anyway, and then there were two.
I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your response to that, and then I do have some questions for both of you.
Well, I tell you what, I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am, you know who he is, you know his character, you know my character, you know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I'm anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up. Please respond, and then we're going to have follow-up.
If this stuff is true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
Right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody's
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
Laptop from hell.
President Trump, we're
Nobody.
talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
And I
you've
have to respond to that.
Please,
Because look,
very
there
quickly.
are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly
going?
what.
This is
told.
where he's going. The laptop is Russia,
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding.
Yeah, I literally have no thoughts on the whole Hunter Biden laptop situation. I haven't read into it at all, so I'm just going to power through this like I did with the whole mail-in ballot thing back on the first debate.
Here we
Mr.
go
President,
again with Russia.
We're going to continue on the issue of race. Mr. President, you've
that one.
described the Black Lives Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've shared a video of a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You've said that black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing. As far as my relationships with all people, I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
Well, what do you say to Americans who are concerned by that rhetoric?
I don't know.
and by
I mean,
the
I don't know
videos?
what to say. I got criminal justice reform done and prison reform and opportunity zones. I took care of black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they can say anything. It makes me sad because I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask you very
I don't
quickly,
recall
and then I have
him
a
ever
follow-up question.
retweeting anything about someone saying white power. Do you?
I don't either. And as far as like him self-acclaiming to be the least racist person in the room, like that would like include all the people in the audience. So I do not know about that. Do not pat yourself that much on the back, Trump. You're about to break it.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. He started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything.
Okay, the first part there about the whole Mexican statement, fair enough. I mean, I've said that from the beginning ever since I first heard it back in 2016 when he announced his presidential run. That it was definitely clumsy wording, at least, and it comes off as racist. The whole Muslim thing, though, that's absolute bull. Like, he does not dislike Muslims just because of their religion, and he did not say ban all Muslims from traveling into the United States. It was like a select, 6 countries that he banned travel from that were hotbeds of ISIS and whatnot.
Worse across the board. He says about the poor boys. Last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand.
Poor boys? Did you mean to say proud boys?
And ready. Come on. This guy has a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10
Oh, my dog whistle. My dog whistle.
seconds to respond, and then I have a
No,
follow-up.
he made a reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
You said
where
you're
did that-
Abraham
No,
Lincoln.
where did that? No.
You said-
I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community.
And I'm
I
saying-
didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community. Now
He
you have
is
done.
correct there. Trump did say.
Yeah, I
what he's
remember
saying.
back on the first debate, he did not say that he's the same as Abraham Lincoln. He's saying that he's been the best for the black community since Abraham Lincoln. So, Joe, of
And
course, Joe
which
Biden.
I would actually agree with him on that, because technically he's done more than Obama did for the black community.
I would have to go back and read back on it, but I don't know.
No, because think of it this way. 2 things. One, the
More than
economy,
Eisenhower?
he increased that. There's also the fact that he did get some criminal justice reform, which Obama never was able to do.
Well, more than
So
Eisenhower,
he
though.
technically has probably been one of the most being able to improve the situation for Black Americans.
Well, not even like comparing him to Obama specifically, because I can agree fair enough with that. But what about Eisenhower? I mean, if we're going to be comparing him to every single president since Abraham Lincoln, as far as who contributed most to the black community, because I would almost say that anybody, almost everyone actually, could come back and say Eisenhower did better than you ever since Lincoln. So forth.
Perhaps.
But I digress. But nonetheless, it's just I can't remember what exactly it was that was said in response here. But it just oh yeah, it was Joe Biden taking Trump out of context. Just look at him there. He can't do anything except smile through his bullshit. I just find that funny.
Nothing other than the crime bill, which put
Oh, God.
tens of thousands of black men, mostly, in jail.
All right, let me-
And you know
let me
what?
a- let me
They
ask
remember
Vice
it,
President
because if you
Biden
look
a
at what's
question.
happening with the voting right now,
Let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that you
Biden
treated them
about-
very, very badly.
The-
Just
the-
take a look at what's happening out there.
Vice President Biden, let me give you a chance to respond within this context. Crime bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of young black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession. They are sons, they are brothers, they're fathers, they're uncles, whose families are still to this day, some of them suffering the consequences. So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
One of the things is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change the since then, particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board. That's what we should be spending money on. That's why I set up drug courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done, because I think the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to drug. But they were not in the crime bill.
But why didn't he?
To Biden's credit, I thought that was a good enough answer for what he was given there.
Get it done. See, it's all talk, no action with these politicians. Why didn't he get it done? That's what I'm going to do when I become president. You were vice president along with Obama as your president, your leader, for 8 years. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years to get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because you're all talk and no action, Jim.
We got a
Your
lot of it
response.
done. We released
You didn't get
38,000.
anything
We got
done.
38,000 prisoners left from the.
You got nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison. There were over 1,000 people who were given clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on, but we began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
I
Quick
just
response,
asked,
and then we're
I
gonna
just
move
asked
on
one
to climate
question.
change.
Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. You put tens of thousands of mostly black young men in prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know why,
Because-
Joe? Because you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President
Because
Biden, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress. That's the answer.
Well, you
Okay.
got to talk them into it, Joe. Sometimes
All right.
you got to talk them into it.
We're going to move on to our next section.
Yeah, I don't even know if I recall there even being a proposal by Obama as far as that goes. And not to mention, for the first 2 years of Obama's tenure, he had the Democrats were dominant in the presidency and both chambers of legislation, the Senate and the House of Representatives. So don't even give us that crap, Biden.
Like I did
Which
with
is
criminal
climate
justice
change.
reform. I had
Okay.
to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen,
did
we're
what we've
running out of
already done.
time, so we got to get on to climate change, please. You both have very different visions on climate change.
brother.
President Trump, you say that environmental regulations have hurt jobs in the energy sector. Vice President Biden, you have said you see addressing climate change as an opportunity to create new jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love the environment, but what I want is the cleanest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so well with industry, but here's what we can't do. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away our businesses.
Well, to be fair, it's not like the Paris climate deal was like making a mandate on the United States to do this. It was more like a suggestion on how everyone was to act, you know, as according to Forbes magazine when I read up back when that fight was going on.
Will not sacrifice tens of millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we...
Although I do want to say that symbolically, because of the symbolism of what symbolism that the Paris climate deal stands for, and that the United States is supposed to take more action than all these countries that are dirtier than us, that because of that, I say that Trump did good in turning down the Paris climate deal on that front.
Kicked in right away, it would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden, 2 minutes to you, uninterrupted.
Climate change, climate warming, global warming is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years. 4 more years of this man eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to limit limit emissions, will put us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor, the people worried about jobs, to support my climate plan. Because what it does, it will create millions of new good-paying jobs. We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating significant number of jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs, and it's going to clean the environment. Our health and our jobs are at stake. That's what's happening. And right now, by the way, Wall Street firms indicated that my plan will in fact create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street. And I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
President Trump.
I don't know how much I would trust the Wall Street Journal, considering the fact that they called PewDiePie, of all people, a freaking Nazi. So, do you have somebody at least more credible than the Wall Street Journal as far as who to source on how your plan will supposedly positively affect the economy of the United States? Joe? No? I didn't think so.
They came out and said very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan, that his plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, you know, if you look at his plan, his environmental plan, you know who developed it? AOC plus 3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate, and they're all hopping through hoops for AOC plus 3. Look, their real plan costs $100 trillion. If we had the best year in the history of our country for 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they want to take buildings down because I want to make bigger windows into smaller windows. As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it would be a lovely thing. This is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen. And this wasn't done by smart people. This wasn't done by anybody. Frankly, I don't even know how it can be good politically. They want to spend $100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. It's $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build new buildings with little, tiny, small windows. I mean, and many other things.
Okay.
And many other things.
Let me have the Vice President respond, and we're running out of time, and we have a lot more questions to get to.
Country.
So let's hear from the Vice President. I have a number more questions.
I don't know where he comes from. I don't know where he comes up with these numbers.
Queen.
$100 trillion. Give me a break. This plan was endorsed by every major environmental group and every labor group. Labor. because they know the future lies. The future lies in us being able.
100 trillion. He was referring more specifically to AOC's Green New Deal. But if your plan is anything similar to AOC's deal, well, then it's gonna like cost in the range of 80 trillion over the next 10 years. I mean, he's not lying when he says that. Business Insider and well, I can't remember what was the second source, but there was at least two sources that I read up that said that it would cost 90 trillion, over 90 trillion over the next 10 years to implement AOC's Green New Deal. And if your plan is anything along the lines of that, and that is what it is sounding like, Joe, with you want to like set up charging stations at almost every few hundred miles or few tens of miles, whatever, along the highway, then it is gonna be pretty damn expensive. Glenn Collins says the Wall Street Journal have a lot more reporters trained in business than they do in recognizing Nazis. Well, I guess so, but I would still, it would still raise some eyebrows for me. It's still kind of questionable.
To breathe, and they know they're good jobs in getting us there. And by the way, the fastest growing industry in America is solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer. Windmills. It's the fastest growing job.
What? When did he say that? I never.
He actually did say that, so I can attest to that.
Then
there was something
windmills,
stupid Trump said once.
That windmills cause cancer.
Yes.
Okay, that is a freaking stupid. It sounded too stupid for a moment there. That was hard to believe. But if he said it, I mean, I guess it's not totally out of reality. But nobody, I mean, I guess outside of Trump, has ever said that they cause cancer. If anything, it kills birds, is what the thing is.
He did also say it does kill birds, which is true.
Yeah, that's a pretty much general fact. One thing about the Green New Deal when they first published it was that they were going to pay people who don't want to work, says no one.
Although I think they're actually, although I don't think there was the windmills cause cancer, but there was in some like other things that because of the bringing in the windmills somehow increase, I think, keep people from not being able to sleep, and somehow that increases the likely chances of getting cancer. I can't remember. I think I read an article once that not the windmills, but what they do in the sense of, I think, noise or something, noise pollution.
So it seems like some mental gymnastics indirect statement that Trump,
I think. I can't remember for sure. But Trump did say that windmills cause cancer. That I will say that he did say.
And they pay good prevailing wages, $45, $50 an hour. We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
President Trump, please respond, and then I have some follow-up.
We are energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive. Kills all the birds. It's very intermittent. It's got a lot of problems, and they happen to make the windmills in both Germany and China. And the fumes coming up, if you're a believer in carbon emission.
And not to mention, I would have to look more into this, by the way, folks. And not to mention that in the production and installation of all these windmills, it ends up taking up more energy than they produce in their entire lifetime. By their lifetime, I mean the windmills.
The fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a scientist who said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our big, beautiful factories that we need to compete with the world. So it's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the world. But if you want to kill the economy, get rid of your oil industry. You want, and what about fracking?
All right, let me allow Vice President.
I have to say that in the first half of this debate that Joe Biden was looking relatively energetic, but here in the back half of the debate, or at least the back 30 minutes, the 1/3 of the debate, that Joe Biden is really looking drained in this debate. Just overall body language is not looking all that bright on Joe Biden's part. Of course, that doesn't mean hardly squat when it comes to the substance of the debate, but it's just a little critique I thought I'd put out there.
I have never said I oppose fracking.
You said it on tape.
I did. Show the tape. Put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is he's flat lying.
Yeah, okay. I do recall him, in fact, saying that he does want to eliminate fracking ultimately. Now, it's confusing ultimately as to what his ideal stance is on fracking, because they're like conflicting statements that Joe Biden has made. Like there's some
Here's what it is. There's two things. One is he said he's corrected himself, saying he just wants to ban federal fracking. However, since his Green New Deal and on his own website, he says he wants to phase out of fossil fuels. So what you could entail, that could mean that he wants to eventually make it either harder or illegal to attain fossil fuels. That could affect the country from decades to come.
Mm-hmm. It just it does seem slightly conflicting, the statements that he has made throughout the campaign as far as fracking and fossil fuels go. You still need oil. Moon-based radio says in the chat, you still need oil. I think he means to say 4 windmills, and electric cars need lube. Yeah, good point. I mean, how do you think you're going to be able to get that plastic for building those windmills? So, yeah, there's that there.
Would you rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer, we need other...
I find that hard to believe. I'll have to look back on it to confirm, but as far as I know, Obama was pushing for banning or at least heavily regulating fracking.
Industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025. What I will do with fracking over time is make sure that we can capture the emissions from the fracking, capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money and doing it. But it's a transition to that.
I have one more question in this pod.
He was against fracking. He said it. I will show that to you tomorrow. I am against fracking. Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know what, Pennsylvania? He'll be against it very soon because his party is totally against it.
Fracking on federal land, I said. No fracking or oil on federal land.
Let me ask this final question in this section, and then I want to move on to our final section. President Trump, people of color are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has rolled back regulations on these kinds of facilities. Why should these families give you another 4 years in office?
The families that we're talking about are employed heavily, and they are making a lot of money, more money than they've ever made. If you look at the kind of numbers that we produce for Hispanic, for Black, for Asian, it's 9 times greater, the percentage gain, than it was in 3 years, than it was under 8 years of the 2 of them, to put it nicely. 9 times more. Now, somebody lives, I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it, and I saved it again a number of months ago when oil was crashing because of the pandemic. Okay. We saved it. We got, say what you want about relationship, we got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again. And everybody has very inexpensive gasoline. Remember
Vice President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question for both of you.
My response is that those people live on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that, in fact, pollute, chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. And the more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car when there was first frost to drive me to school, turn in the windshield wiper, there'd be oil slick in the window. That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer. The fact is, those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them, it matters how you keep them safe. What do you do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final
Would
question.
Would he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil industry?
By the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I would
that's
transition.
a big statement.
It is a big statement.
That's a
because
big statement.
I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
Here's the deal. But
That's
you
a
can't
big
do
statement.
that. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas,
I can at least agree with that, but at the same time, I say no subsidies for anyone, Joe.
solar and wind.
The solar panel industry and windmills would need massive subsidies to be able to be even somewhat profitable.
Yeah, which is basically what Biden's going to say. He's going to say no subsidies for conventional energy, but let's give subsidies for green energy.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do
All
give
right.
it to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
We have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you
Okay.
remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I
Ohio.
have to get to the final question. Vice President Biden.
He takes everything out of context. But the point is, look, we have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production. By 2050, totally.
All right. One
Is he
final
gonna get
question
China
to
to do
both.
it?
No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We
going
have
to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question. We have to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our final
rejoin Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right,
That'll
this
cost you
is
$1
about
trillion.
leadership, gentlemen. And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to Americans who did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute, starting with you, Mr.
We have to make our country totally successful as it was prior to the plague coming in from China. Now we're rebuilding it, and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs.
He said the plague. I mean, I know what he's referring to right there, but to call it the plague, that sounds like hyperbole. It's almost like you're referring to bubonic plague, Trump. Anyway.
Jobs in a short period of time, etc. But I will tell you, go back. Before the plague came in, just before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history of our country. Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The other side wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success. But I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right.
Probably going to hit a recession or even a depression nonetheless, but I digress.
President Biden, same question to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote for you?
I will say, I'm an American president. I represent all of you, whether you voted for me or against me. And I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose to move forward because we have enormous opportunities to make things better. We can grow this economy. We can deal with the systemic racism. And at the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is the character of this country: decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
All right. I want to thank you both for a very robust hour and a half, a fantastic debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, thank you to Belmont University for hosting us tonight. And most importantly, thank you to those watching tonight. Election Day is November.
Yeah, and thank you for at least being better than Chris Wallace. Like, I was concerned there for a second, Rash, that she was about to be just as bad as Chris Wallace, but ultimately in the end, I think she did overall better than Chris Wallace, because even though that she was being challenging to Trump, at the same time there was some points that she was being challenging to Biden. Maybe she was being slightly more challenging to Trump than Biden, but at the same time, I think the ratios were a little bit closer of who she was challenging than as compared to Chris Wallace's. And by the way, that derpy looking face I just paused her on right there. But yeah, what did you think of the debate, Rash?
I think the only part I would say that Trump, the biggest part I think that could potentially hurt really Trump is the bringing up IQ. That is the only part I think that he should not have done. But if that is not brought up in the news as much as we perhaps think maybe it is, or maybe, I don't know. I think that's the only part that could greatly affect, I think that could really greatly hurt him, is that part. The rest of it, I think he did great in responding pretty much. I think some of the parts he could have done better, but that would be the only part I would have that could potentially hurt him.
Yeah, I think that overall Trump edged over Biden. I mean, he probably did not win as much in the first debate, because the first debate Biden was just you know what I just thought of here? The whole court packing issue did not get brought up in this debate. It was brought up in the first debate, And Biden, of course, everyone knows, completely dodged that question, but it wasn't brought up in this debate. I really wish that it was brought up in this debate. And do you remember the white supremacy question being brought up? Because I do not know if I.
The white supremacy question wasn't brought up here, it seems.
Oh. Okay.
However, there was a kind of a slight saying that he shared a video about some guy saying white power, which I don't recall happening.
It was along the same lines, and yeah, I kind of doubt that actually being a thing, but apparently Aircraft Sparky might have heard wrong, and when that he thought that that they were going to ask him again about the whole thing of white supremacy,
Anyways, as far as the debater, moderator as she goes, I think she did okay. I think the first half she did a lot better, and the second half.
The second half was when that she was starting to get more challenging towards both of them, and particularly Trump.
I think she had a slight bias maybe against Trump, but maybe I'm wrong because technically we're both biased in favor of Trump.
It wasn't as it wasn't as brash of a bias as say Chris Wallace was seeming to have.
But yeah, as far as who won the debate, I think Trump, other than his IQ comment, if he had never that, it was a manslaughter, I feel, against Biden. That was the only part I feel like could have severely hurt his perception within this debate with people.
Yeah, and like I said earlier in this debate, I think that body language that Biden ended up looking worse as far as that goes. As far as substance goes, I think Biden might have done just a little bit better when it comes to attacking Trump on the substantive side of the issues as compared to the first debate. But it still wasn't enough for me to think that he absolutely won against Trump. I mean, the vice presidential debate, I still have a hard time as to determining of who I thought won, but that's just my opinion, though. So, there's nothing much new in the chat ever since mentioning the whole thing about energy and whatnot from some newcomers, Moon-Based Radio and Glenn Collins. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much... That's the end of the debate, and I gotta get myself some sleep because I still got myself an early morning going to work and whatnot.
Alright, well, see you later.
Well, see you later, Rational Outlaw. And that was my co-host there, and Smiley P, he ultimately did not show up, but I guess that's alright because this stream probably would have ended up getting even more debatey and elongated if he did join, so it might have been a good thing, an ultimatum of things. I mean, no offense to Smiley P, but nonetheless. But I do have to say, for all those who have watched, for all those who are watching, please leave a like. It helps in the algorithm. Very quickly in the chat, we just got a new live comment. I think in the bits they usually clip at the beginning, sound bites, and the end, Biden did come across well, says Glenn Collins. In the bits they usually clip is what he says. So, fair point. I mean, obviously, media is going to pick and choose the moments of when that they thought that Biden did best. But, yeah, nonetheless, to everybody who liked the stream, please, hit that thumbs up button down below. And if you are a newcomer to this live stream and if you like the format and the channel overall, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon. I got a full criteria, whole catalog of edited response videos. Those are entertaining. I'm coming out with one here, a new one here shortly, hopefully sooner rather than later. And you're welcome, Glenn Collins. Thanks for watching this stream, and thank you all for watching when you have, even though not everybody stuck around. And I would like to thank my co-hosts or panelists for joining me: Common Sense Guy, Libertarian Native, and of course, Rational Outlaw. And that's about all I have to say. I'm going to about end the stream. See y'all later. Good night.